Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome to Champion Motorsports iRacing Team Endurance event, live from the Temple of Speed, Monza. Hello, my name is Taylor Burris, and joining me is my co-host Rachel Whiteford, and of course, our wonderful producer, Ryan Bauer. We are here to bring you all the exciting action here live from this hallowed grounds located in Italy. And Rachel, this track is by far one of the most amazing tracks to be a part of when coming to race here, whether it be open wheels, sports cars, you name it. Even, in fact, back in the old days when they decided to run the giant oval here, this track has so much history.
Absolutely does, Taylor. Good afternoon, everybody. And yes, you'll probably be able to see the oval actually from this the cameras here we have today. But Monza is a hallowed ground. North of Milan in Italy, built in 1922, it was the third purpose-built motorsports track in the world after Brooklands in the UK and Indianapolis, which needs no introduction. Now, of course, its biggest event it hosts is the Italian Grand Prix, and with the exception of the 1980s running, the race has been hosted here since 1949. So it's actually on the Royal Villa Park of Monza, in a beautiful woodland here, and you can see that oval track, which was the original course. In fact, we do run the start-finish line runs on a portion of that here today. It's hosted everything from Formula 1 to Renault 3.5, Auto GP, Blancpain GT Endurance Series, Formula Euro. It's hosted TCR, WTCC, Superbikes, Porsche Carrera Cup, F4, everything basically has been here. This place is hallowed turf, and the Ferrari is strong with this, so this is why I will start off in my introductory monologue here by saying how disappointed I am in Unified Performance Racing. We scolded them last time for running a Primer Grey Ferrari, and that when they were coming to Monza they would have to please the gods of the prancing horse with an offering of a red livery for their car, which they have failed to do. So this is my disappointed tone, Unified Performance Racing, for I am disappointed, and the Ferrari gods do not smile kindly upon you. On slightly different news though, we do have some fantastic sponsors supporting the show, of course, tonight, as always. Penguin RC, Gridfinder, and Complex SimWorks. You'll hear more about their amazing products and services during the series and the broadcast, and Champion Motorsports is pleased to have them as sponsors for this terrific series. So, we love them, we don't love Unified Performance Racing. Boo, you suck. Taylor.
Well, I guess there's been no better introduction I've ever heard when introducing a co-host for a race, so thank you on that, Rachel. But qualifying is about to come under wraps here, and looking at timing and scoring, it is none other than the most dominant LMP2 team since we've kicked off the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series, VRS Satellite Racing, at the top of the leaderboards with a 136.219 in their LMP2, and I know Rachel's not going to be too happy about this, but the United Performance Racing Ferrari in that Primer Grey, unfortunately, is currently on the pole with a 144.401. So we're going to have to keep an eye and see what happens here today. Of course, this is a 2.5-hour race, so qualifying is about to wrap up. A couple of cars are still on the track, and of course, here we have the two classes again, LMP2 GTE. Of course, the LMP2s, for those of you who are new to the series, are purpose-built race cars that are prototypes that are used, that you see mostly at Le Mans and many other sports car endurance series. And then, of course, the GTE cars are more of the cars that you would see on the roads today that you could buy off the showroom for, with a little bit of extra modifications for racing on these tracks. So some of the GTE cars that you would see are Ferraris, of course, BMWs, the Chevrolet Corvette, and of course the Porsche 911 RSR. Rachel, we're looking through the field right now. We do have a couple of Ferraris, but I think it's safe to say none of them have the hallowed Ferrari red on their cars.
No, they don't. That is a significant disappointment, and one that I will lament during the duration of this broadcast, Taylor, because you must bring the red to Ferrari. They will be disappointed with you, and you will awake with a horse head in your team's garage. I'm pretty positive that's definitely a thing. Now, I may be making that up, but it's what I choose to believe, that Enzo Ferrari will come down here and he will place a horse's head in the car bay and within the garage, of course, of every one of these teams here that disrespects the prancing horse. But this track, it is a complicated circuit, but it's also a very simple one, and I will explain to you why right now. At 5.78 kilometers, because we are in Europe, deal with it, 11 turns here around Monza, takes us in a wonderful lap, and we're going to try and go on board here with someone to get a full lap here around Monza to show you the highlights here, as we're on board with the 12 as he darts through what is the second chicane, or variante number 2 here at Monza, diving into turn 6 and 7, the two Lesmos, or Curva di Lesmo, as it is referred to, now darting down the Curva del Sergallo, down towards the variante Ascari. This is the second Lesmo here, diving down here, Sergillo, towards variante Ascari, one of the most exciting complexes in motor racing, with a quick left, right, left, down onto the final straight here at Monza, which will come into the bridge here, diving into Ascari here, this big left over the curb here, right around the curve, then left again. We'll see people lose traction here and spin out. This does happen, as they will dive down here towards a huge corner, the Curva Parabolica, which is a 180-degree turn that leads drivers onto the only segment of the old oval we still run along the start-finish straight, turning in right now. Of course, the outside in real life now is incredibly paved over and boring, rather than being a massive gravel trap. Onto the start-finish line here, to the classic Monza start-finish line, and we will reach the part of the lap we hadn't looked at before, which we'll still stay on board for, which is the first variante de Rettifilo, the first chicane. This is where you'll see a pile of cars. Pretty much every race here at Monza. Big braking, huge braking, biggest braking zone on the track. Through here, quick right, left. And that leads us into the final part of this lap. Whilst we started late, we will finish late, but this is Curva Grande, or the Curva Biasonno. And that's a lap at Monza.
And it just shows how fast that you can take a lap here around Monza, especially in these GTE cars and prototypes as very well. Of course, this track does suit the prototypes because of their low downforce and how much speed that they carry around this circuit, Rachel. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly these LMP2 cars get to the back bumpers of these GTE cars when lap traffic starts to come into play. But there should be a lot of easy passing opportunities where lap traffic and the LMP cars can get around each other a little bit easier. It's just timing it outright is going to be the critical thing. But with that, it is time to go over your starting lineup for today's race. Currently, your pole sitter is VRS Satellite Racing, followed by the TNT Racing Carbon. CMS Pro Summit Team will be in third, followed by the Imperial Motorsports Shake in fourth. Fifth place, TNT Racing Gold with Rebellion Racing in sixth, with the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple in seventh position. DDM Racing will be starting in eighth, with the Craft Dinner Racing in 10th place is Jakester Racing, who still does not have a Jake in their car. We'll see if they have one today. Pneumatic Motorsports Blue in 11th, followed by Hard Promise Racing in 12th. The SimHQ Motorsports 1 will be starting in 13th, and WWZ Red starts in 14th overall. Rachel, how does the GTE field look?
Almost the same as always. We have Unified Performance Racing out front, and they'll find a horse's head soon. We have SimHQ Motorsports 2 in the 34 car in second place there. We have third place Renault Alpine and their confusing Corvette. We have Triple R Racing behind them, with Last Minute Racing in the fifth place. NGP in sixth place, with Can-Am Canucks in seventh. Eighth place will be SimHQ Motorsports 3. Ninth, All Balls Racing. 10th, Longhorn Racing Lone Star. Team Brake Fade in 11th. Longhorn Racing in 12th. Can-Am Express in 13th. MMTR 14th, and Can-Am Express, the other one, with a dash, in 15th. That's confusing.
That is very confusing. So we'll have to see how...
Can-Am from now on.
That works perfectly right there, Rachel. I agree with that. So Pace Car will be leading them on the back half of the course, leading them through the Ascari as well as the Parabolica before we turn them loose here for the next 150 minutes, as the pace car will lead them through. Rachel, anything that we should keep an eye on amongst the GTE field before we turn things loose?
It's going to be really tricky, of course. The first quarter will be the test of fire here, because Yeah, there's usually quite a bit of fire after they all crash. Now, we have the orange starting zone, of course, for the lap, which will, of course, tell drivers to behave themselves for this portion on that very first time by. Whether they listen or not is another matter entirely, but we'll have to find out. Two classes should make it interesting, of course, because if there's a pile of LMP2 cars there when the GT cars arrive, it could become real interesting. Let's hope everyone gets through nice and cleanly, but it is Monza, and it always does happen, so maybe they'll be scared and they'll behave.
They hopefully will behave. We are about to see who will survive the Temple of Speed here at the hallowed grounds of Monza as they work through the Parabolica before we turn them loose. GTE cars are spread a little bit further back, so that way everyone has a clean start for their each respective classes before heading into the first chicane de Retafilio. Pace car is off, waiting for the green flag as we see it right now. Green flag is out, and a great jump right now for your race leader as they work their way down towards the Retafilio chicanes. Heading down for the first time, speeds are approaching before they hit the braking. Couple of cars actually about to go 3 wide, now down to 2 wide as they enter the Retafilio Variante. Down into the chicane, no contact, clean so far. Everyone's starting to bunch up a little bit, but still make it through as they head to the Curva Grande. Rachel, how's the GTE cars looking?
Well, they're coming into the chicane for the first time as well, and they're staying relatively clean as well. In fact, I'm about to give this field a round of applause for a successful navigation of the first Variante here at Monza on lap number 1. Everyone making it through with no big problem whatsoever. Unified and SimHQ out front as expected, with Renault Alpine coming behind them. Triple R right on behind them, actually. In fact, it's actually Last Minute Racing who's jumped a spot here in the early running, and they are right behind them there in that BMW. Desperate to get past the confusing Corvette, as the GT field having a great start. We haven't had a single crash in the first Variante. If I wasn't using my hand to press my push to talk right now, I'd be clapping.
Well, we'll give them a round of applause as we see our race leaders in the LMP2 class. You also see Justin Hess in the non-red Ferrari, but David Williams now heading through Variante Ascari for the first time at full speed as he has right behind him in hot pursuit Jordan Johnson, the CMS Pro Summit team, really one of the other two teams that have been the most dominant here in the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports as they head through the Parabolica for the first time out of the corner exit. You notice that they come out towards the apex and then wash up a little bit wide to make sure they get the right corner exit to carry the most speed as they work down. First lap is complete at Monza.
Great first lap here, of course, as we get this thing rolling in full speed here. A little bit of separation will often help these guys as we see a big move there by TNT Carbon. Parallel here with the machine from Pneumatic Purple. Gets the position as they go through the first Variante. Tricky actual corner there because it's incredibly tight. If you have a car working this way through the chicane, there's Pneumatic Blue who cooked the approach to the Variante. In fact, I believe they actually got a little bit loose in the braking. They did. They got a little sideways and squirrely, so they kept it straight, and they chose to take the slow down and run through there rather than ending up crashing when they tried to turn. So a wise decision this early on. Yeah, track position is lost, but you will gain that back in time as they go through the race, of course, here. And down in our GT field, it's starting to become a wider gap here for Unified and the heretical Ferrari with Justin Hess behind the wheel. SimHQ3 leading the pack in second place with Renault Alpine behind them, Last Minute and Triple R. As we've got a bit of a conga line forming there. The first of the Can-Am Canucks is right behind them as this group heads down through the Lesmos down towards the run to Ascari, and we're looking to have a pretty high-speed race here. We will see drafting once these guys get into bigger groups of cars, and we're also expecting to have cars serving penalties from last time out too. Let's not forget, Taylor.
We certainly do. We'll bring you the updates as they continue on. In fact, one of them is Anthony James right now, who's currently out on the track right now. We'll take a look and find out what his penalty is, but it was from the previous round, of course, when we were last here at Circuit de la Sarthe at Le Mans about a month ago. So we'll keep an eye, see how that will affect that team later on here today. But right now, here is a little bit of a battle going on for the third position between Imperial Motorsports Shake as well as TNT Racing Gold. That's Christopher Pies, for those of you who are fans of the Porsche Car Club of America Sim Racing Series, and Thomas Zeiger, as they will do battle here, heading down out of Curva Grande, heading, of course, into the second chicane, De La Roja.
Absolutely do, and they're going to get their way through here as they go for it now. And these cars, especially the LMP2s, Taylor, have to be very careful because some of these curbs are huge. They're absolutely massive. Now, some of them, the Lesmos, for example, not too big, but in the chicanes and at Ascari, as we watch VRS actually approaching that one, we'll quickly look at them here if we get the chance to. As they come to Ascari now, you'll see how big those sausage curbs are. They will bounce you through the sky. They will flip one of these cars if you hit them properly, and that will not do the aero surfaces on these very aero-dependent cars any good whatsoever. It's a really tricky position for them, and if you get too much curb there, it'll be a problem. The GT cars, yeah, they'll still have pretty huge bounce, so it's something to be very careful of, but I think with that first lap in the books, we're not going to be expecting as much car-to-car contact here necessarily, unless we get some draft passes up towards the first corner, which can still happen. I think this is going to be a race of strategy, timing, and also trying to maintain those distances for the aero.
Certainly is, Rachel. And one thing also you have to worry about when coming out of Ascari is the track limits, as well as you're on board with Mark Johnson right now. If you take that area of Ascari a little too wide, you will get a time penalty that could cost you valuable time on your competitors right now, as we see the BMW now work his way through the Parabolica, trying to catch up to the Renault Alpine Corvette. Still very difficult to say and consider that when I see that each and every time we race, but still putting on a great performance right now as they head down the front straightaway here, heading over, of course, into the Variante Retafiglio.
One of the tougher sections, of course, and right now keep my eyes on Pneumatic Purple. We've got this train of cars actually around us here, but Pneumatic Purple racing right now with Craft Dinner Racing there, and Rebellion, who they've just passed, actually did that in the Retifiglio a moment ago. Pneumatic Purple definitely going somewhere here today. The blue car, of course, had that incident early on, a slowdown they had to take for missing the chicane, but it was a wise decision early on in the race to make. But Purple are definitely making some inroads right now. They're going forwards here, so they're in 6th place overall from the course as it stands. But just forwards to them, we had the other group there. We're looking at them now with TNT Carbon, Imperial Shake, and TNT Gold. So it's right now a TNT sandwich of the Shake, so it's almost a Sonic.
Will we see an explosion of excitement here as they work through the Parabolica? And we see right there Thomas Zeiger get a little bit wide out of the Parabolica. That allows Christopher Pies to get a good run off corner exit. He has the draft on his side. He's closing. It's now less than a car length. He'll duck to the inside to see if he can set up for the first chicane, and as they dive it down into the braking zone, Zeiger will fight back on the outside, but Christopher Pies has the inside advantage. He will take over that 3rd position.
Certainly does, of course, and it's going to be a big move really to hold these sort of positions with the amount of drafting we're seeing and how close these cars are. These can change almost every lap, but that is a big benefit because it can allow them to actually gain track position and time to move forwards on the guys at the front. It is very difficult to stay out front at Monza with that because the cars behind can group up and gang up on you.
They certainly are, so that's very important of why you need to make sure you hit your marks in order to try and pull away from your competitors like David William, like Jordan Johnson, who have pulled by about a 5-second gap over the rest of the field right now. And in fact, for Jordan Johnson and the CMS Pro Summit team, he has about a 2.2 second advantage over Christopher Pies, Thomas Zeiger, and Everett Paddock, as they are the rest of your top 5. That's your best battle on the track, the battle for 3rd as they work their way through Ascari now. Christopher Pies still holding on to that position as they work their way towards the Parabolica.
They certainly do, of course. The Parabolica being a huge corner to really gain track position on. And as you see them coming through now, how you come through this corner can be a big advantage for you there. As we saw, the Shake has gotten past the sandwich and is now on top. So it's kind of like an open sandwich at the moment. But as he's going to come back on them now, TNT Carbon looking for that move, or TNT Gold, I think it is actually, there, side by side towards Retifiglio. And the advantage, I think, will go to Gold. No, it won't. I thought he might stick on the outside, but he gives the positioning up. And Shake will maintain position there. So good nerve held.
Certainly is, and also smart racing, realizing we still have quite a ways left to go. You do not want to mess up your race vehicle because of how important the aerodynamics are on this track. One small bump could cost you a chance at a podium or victory here. As we move a little further back to the GTE field, there's a battle for P10, 9 and 10 between Mike Tyler of Longhorn Racing along with Team Break Fade, and then another Longhorn Racing of James Foster and David Anderson as they work through the Parabolica. So it's a Ferrari sandwich with a BMW in the middle.
Well, that's something you'd hope to see at Monza, of course. You want to see those guys ahead. Speaking of Ferraris, Unified Performance Racing out front by quite a margin here. Not in any real trouble as things stand, but the gap is opening up significantly for them. We're looking nearly 10 seconds. Actually, no, I'm completely lying to you. I misread the time. It's more like 4 seconds, but they're well out of the draft range, so this is actually pretty safe for them, especially as SimHQ2 is not around anybody else racing, so they aren't going to be getting any real advantage. However, that could change once we're in Alpine last minute and Triple R catch up to them.
Yes, currently right now it's Brian Van Bisciomi in second place in his SimHQ Motorsports 2 Corvette. Gets a little bit loose out of the first Lesmo as he works his way to the second one, but a little further back you find Francois Brou, Mark Johnson, and Stefan Bauer. The rest of your top 5, as it is the Corvette, BMW, and Ferrari, working their way towards the Ascari chicanes.
Yeah, they really are here, and these corners have huge history here at Monza, of course, from the track's original layout, which was that pure oval design. It's really a wild track here, and you see so little of it from the racetrack itself, but I'm wondering if we can actually get a high camera angle here to maybe catch some of this, because it's such a beautiful course that we'll see it come into frame actually here in a minute. Look at the top right of your screen, you'll see it weaving in there just on the outside. You see it join there as they come out of Parabolica, and it runs all the way down here towards this first section, and just before they make the run into the first chicane, you'll see it dive off to the right on the inside, just above you there, and the track peels away as it curves in, that huge banking. So yeah, banked oval courses weren't necessarily a NASCAR thing. They were motor racing courses originally. This is how it was done. Indy, of course, being flat was quite a different thing, but Brooklands had banking in the UK, and Monza here also has banking now. iRacing's made this raceable. It's almost somewhat restored it to an actual racing surface of sorts. It's incredibly rough, but it is raceable. The current actual one at Monza, I don't believe is in a condition you could run on. It is quite overgrown and worn out, but it really is a beautiful part of history that this remains here, because it is such a huge part of the circuit's history and the history of Italy. To motor racing, the Monza Oval and the remains of those concrete bankings, I think, are almost akin to a motor racing Colosseum or a motor racing Circus Maximus. It is one of the original temples of entertainment of a culture.
It certainly is, Rachel, and if you think about it as well, this is the track that they used to pit some of the biggest names in motorsports against each other. Formula One stars, IndyCar stars, sports car stars used to come here in open-wheel vehicles and do battle at the banked ovals at Monza, and seeing the speeds and the danger back then was phenomenal.
And it really was, and that's something we often don't talk about in motor racing, but unfortunately, motor racing is incredibly dangerous, and Monza has had more than its share. Monza has had crashes up until, I believe, the last one was in 2000, which was actually a track marshal. But whether it's been motorcycle racing or motor car racing, Monza's had more than its share. I believe I can think of at least 15 to 20 fatalities at Monza alone. It is a deadly circuit. Now, the vast majority of those up until the 40s or 50s were on the oval, but it's been a variety of a circuit, because obviously it had both as a layout. It didn't just have one, it had both. So the original circuit in the 20s had both the oval and the road course, and it could be a combined circuit. So you would essentially run the first part of the road course. There were no chicanes back then, of course. They were added to protect the drivers against the speeds they were doing. But the original circuit, you would run from the start finish line into the oval, round the oval, come out of the oval, run down to where the first chicane is, through Curva Grande towards the Lesmos, down, rejoin, and then go back into the oval again. So it was very much a whole overall bigger circuit. There was, of course, the Florio circuit from the 35 to 37-ish era. Of course, there wasn't much racing after 1937 for at least 5-6 years. Well, plenty of racing was actually going to France but not coming back, and to Warsaw. But the second version, of course, took away the oval. That was 50 to 54, and then they reintroduced the oval in 55, 56, and into the 60s, where they had a combined circuit, and then they became two separate ones before the oval was officially retired in 1962, I believe it was, into about 70. At that point, the oval was no more. So the actual road circuit we know today in its true form came about in 1976 or 7, I believe it was, until kind of the 90s. That's when that track really became the variation we know today. And the current actual full version we're running now is from 2000. So it's dramatically changed over the years. And in fact, there's been, I believe, at least 9 distinct versions of this track. I feel like I'm giving a history lesson here, because this track is so storied and so historic. It's such a crazy place that it has this much variety and history to it.
It certainly is, and it's amazing to see the history of this track still alive and well today with, of course, sports car and Formula One and other forms of racing, like we brought out in our opening, that still come to this hallowed ground in order to keep the tradition of Monza and this Temple of Speed alive. But let's take a quick little update on what we have going on right now through the field. So the LMP2 cars are working their way through the GTE traffic, so just shy of 10 laps is when they started making their way through. You're on board with our overall and LMP2 leader, David Williams, working his way through the field as he heads towards Ascari. As they work down into the braking zone, he just passed one of the BMWs that was just by. That was, of course, Tom Blindloss from NGP as they come out of Ascari towards the Parabolica. And, of course, it is still Justin Hess in the GTE class, your class leader there in the primer gray Ferrari. Still shaking my head each and every time I see that now today, but we will move on as they work their way, of course, into the first chicanes, which of course is none other than what we were surprised nobody really got into for the most part on the opening lap, the Rettifilio.
Yes, it is, of course, and it's going to be one of those races today where we really see strategy play the biggest part in this thing. It's going to be about who pits when and how. Tyre deck will be a huge factor here, and these guys really have to focus on that sort of thing because it will play the biggest role.
It certainly will, and as a matter of fact, Rachel, one LMP2 car has already made its way into the pit stops. That is Robert Tornello from Jakester Racing, who made the first pit stop in this LMP2 class. One GTE car has pitted as well, but they are towards the back half of the field. That is All Balls Racing's Paul Hamilton, who has also made a pit stop. So 2 cars have pitted, and we will see how their situation will go as the race progresses. But it's still early on. We've only completed 11 laps, and we have not reached even 30 minutes left, or 30 minutes past this race.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not even 30 minutes yet, but it's been a crazy one so far. Only 20 minutes in, and we've had a lot of things going on. Jakester Racing are struggling right now. They're down considerably in terms of positioning. At the moment, it's going to be tough for them, but they're going to try and work their way back with this, as we do have quite a bit of fall-off in places. But the gap's starting to open up. We're looking at about 4 or 5 seconds for our leaders of both classes, as once again, they just show how dominant they've been so far in this series, and how catching them has been such a big achievement for some teams, like we saw at Circuit de Mans, of course.
Certainly is. Let's take a look and see if we have any battles actually on the track. We have a couple of cars close together, but it is 2 team cars. It's the Pneumatic Motorsports team, purple and blue, Robert Tarbox and Jason Lundy. You can also throw in DDM Racing's Douglas Ritter in this fight as they work out of the Parabolica. Of course, we see Ritter having a good run here, running inside the top 10 as he's trying to get a draft off of the 2 Pneumatic Motorsports cars. Jason Lundy is in front of him first. He'll get a good little bit of a draft as they work down the front straightaway, heading into the Retafilio. He'll take a peek. Oh, loses a little bit loose right there under braking, clips over the curbing. That's going to affect the undercarriage of that P2 car and loses some valuable time on Lundy.
Yeah, it really does, and it's going to be really tricky for that sort of timing to get it right here for them. But the more interesting part is we're going to have lap traffic already. Jakester Racing looking to be lapped. In fact, I believe have been lapped already at least once by the VRS Satellite Racing Team car driven by David Williams. But CMS Pro Summit have passed them. TNT Carbon are looking to do exactly that too. So we're starting to see some lapping happening pretty quickly in this race, which will happen with how big the speed variety can be.
Certainly is, Rachel, as we watch our race leader David Williams work their way through Ascari, heading down this short straightaway here before they get to the Parabolica. There are your two class leaders and overall leader as they work into the Parabolica. Justin Hess, you're on board with him right now, looking back as you will probably see that P2 car poke its head out right as soon as we can. There it is, right there, and closing ever so closely. Looking at the lapse times right now between the two classes, you're looking at close to anywhere between 6 to 7 seconds between the two. Of course, VRS's David Williams ran a 1:37 last time by compared to Justin Hess's Unified Performance Racing, a 1:44. So it just shows the difference in speed among the two classes is very great and very important of why these drivers need to try to work together, show respect to each other's classes, especially this early on.
Yes, certainly, of course, but I think it's actually slightly less of an importance here, perhaps, because the speed difference is so big. You'll see a lot of passing on the straights rather than in corners. And Monza being such a speed track, that difference in speed makes it so much bigger, of course. They'll be so far, much further ahead for all lapping happening. But the fact of there is, of course, as long as you wait for the straight, it's no real challenge to get past the other cars, because these cars really have the headline speed advantage in the LMP2 class, and the GT cars are focusing more on fighting the corners. It's a whole different race for the two classes, which really flips things compared to Sebring.
It certainly does, Rachel, as you're on board with Mark Johnson, who is in a heated battle with, of course, the Renault Alpine Racing of Francois Brou, as they work their way into the Ascari, one of the LMP2 cars. That is, of course, the TNT Racing car, or Racing Gold, of Thomas Zeiger getting by those two. And as they do now, once again, will do battle for position and continue on their way as they head towards the Parabolica once again. Here we see, can we see Johnson get a good run? He has the slipstream. He could set up, if he's able to time it right through the Parabolica to get the run he needs, heading down, of course, into the Retafilio. Out of the Parabolica, Johnson's trying to get a better exit, but not good enough, as Francois Brou will get the run off there better as they work down the front straightaway.
Yeah, they absolutely will, of course. And the front straight is going to be a huge factor for them in this one. It's the big kind of advantage out of Parabolica, and it's where you'll see a lot of the movements setting up for passes, of course, into that first chicane. As we see there, Renault Alpine getting through. It's really the big fight zone. It's where you'll see most passes happen today. It's the real only opportunity you have such a big braking zone.
Rachel, for your thoughts on this matter, would you rather be the car having the draft advantage of that pull from your competitors in front of you out of the Parabolica, or would you rather risk it and try to be defensive as you see Johnson dives to the inside of Francois Brou as they work their way from De La Rocha and now head to the first Lesmo? As they continue out of the second Lesmo right now, we will see Francois Brou holding strong. David Anderson now is going to see what he can do as they work their way to De La Rocha, as he is in a heated battle right now with Mike Tyler. So the two Longhorn Racing drivers working their way up through the field in the top 10 in class as they continue through the first Lesmo and continue on. The two Ferraris, of course, in a bit of an interesting situation and battle with another team here in the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports with the SimHQ Motorsports team. Rachel?
Yeah, absolutely. SimHQ Motorsports team doing what they can for this one. And they have quite a few entries, of course, always in this series. You've got the Motorsports 1 car in LMP 2. HQ2 is in the, of course, second position right now in GTE. those guys doing great as always. They've been one of the strongest teams we've had in the series. And the third car currently running a little bit slower than they usually have been. They're back in, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th place in class. And they're fighting with NGP, who are actually closing in here.
Yeah, let's take a look at this battle right here as one of the LMP2 cars works their way by. We see NGP Tom Bindlost work his way to, of course, the first set of chicanes, gets right on the back bumper, almost had to check up a little bit to avoid making contact with him, but as they head to the Curva Grande, they are starting to get a little bit of separation, but we'll see what happens when they head into De La Rocha. As they work their way through, we see Mike Grimshaw get a little bit of pulling away now as they head under the bridge into the braking zone.
Yeah,
ooh, trouble for
NGP goes off, and they just overcook the corner. It's the tricky part about these chicanes is if you do bite too much and you slide and you hit those rumbles, you will go sideways off it. And thankfully, hit the brakes there and avoided getting in the way of SimHQ1's car, which could have been disastrous coming back on at the apex there.
Yeah, that would have been very difficult for Morgan Gillespie as well, as she is in the SimHQ Motorsports 1.
It certainly is, of course, and it's tricky, especially with the two different classes. You'll often not have moments like that, but you'll usually be inconsiderate passes or taking a chance you probably shouldn't have done. Because one thing I've noticed in multi-class racing, especially in the sim more than real life per se, but it still happens in real life, even up to things like the World Endurance Series, the proto cars can take more lines through a corner. They're fast enough, they have enough downforce to do so. They're able to really pull multiple lines. The GTE cars can't. They have got really 1 or 2 lines max, mostly 1. So they'll put them on an offline that they're not comfortable with, and that GTE car might lose traction, spin, and well, the proto gets collected, but it's really their fault.
As we watch on their way through the field, as we see actually a little bit of a battle in the... Ooh, there goes actually one of the SimHQ Motorsports Corvettes off course. That, I believe... Was that the Brian Van Viscone?
That's number 2, it's second place.
That was second
the
place.
Whole second chicane there, so that will be a time penalty for him, but he has got a bit of time here on last minute racing. He might make up that last minute actually right now.
He certainly will, but I think it has something to do with, of course, the LMP2 cars that were working their way around him. As they work through the Curva Grande heading into De La Rocha, you will see right there, I think he was trying to not end up in the back bumper of one of those LMP2 cars and just overshoots it, decides to pull the smart thing and cut the chicane. He does get the time penalty, but he still has a clean race car for the most part.
I'm so sorry, Attila. I've been a little bit delayed. Little anecdote moment, but my other half just had to come into the room to demand some ham from my dinner tonight, my pizza, because apparently the cat is bullying him out of his chicken strippers. So, yeah. Small furry demon trying to take things that don't belong to it.
Of course.
He deserves. Yeah, such is life in commentary where you're trying to sneak a meal between sentences. But this is it. We know we love the racing, we love what we do, and I'm more than willing to eat a pizza at my desk if it lets me race and broadcast.
Well, you mean you couldn't pick a better meal to have here at a better racetrack, of course, Rachel?
Absolutely, yeah. Pizza for an Italian race, of course. It makes total sense. That's
it does.
Why I did it, obviously.
Of course.
Because it was convenient.
As we continue to watch on the LMP2 battle that we just were talking about between, of course, the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple of Robert Tarbox and Douglas Ritter as they are working their way through GTE traffic. They've caught up to the back bumper of the Primer Gray Unified Performance. I don't even want to call it a Ferrari now, but it is a Ferrari, unfortunately.
We'll name it for this race, the Notari.
The Notari. I like that. The Notari. I like that one. We'll go with that one as Justin Hess works his way around the LMP2 cars, lets them by to continue their battle as we watch on another battle right now happening up towards P6. That's John Taylor Tammy in the Rebellion Racing and Thomas Zeiger in the TNT Racing Gold. They came out of the Parabolica. This will allow John Taylor Tammy to see if he can have anything for Zeiger side by side as they work down the front straightaway, heading, of course, into the first set of chicanes once again into the Retafilio, into the braking zone they will go. John Taylor Tammy has the inside advantage as we see a little lockup from Zeiger, pulls it off, completes the pass back up into 5th position.
Oh, beautiful move there. He got it done in perfect style. That's how you make a pass in that first chicane here at Monza. It's about setting up and having the faith to continue it and respect between the two drivers to give each other room.
Certainly is, as you're on board with Stephen Bauer right now as they work out of the Parabolica, trying to do battle with Francois Brou, a purple Ferrari and a Corvette that thinks it's a Renault. What could possibly go wrong as they head into Retafilio, into the braking zone? A P2 driver right behind him. That is, I believe, Robert Cottle from WWZ Red. That is trying to get around them, as it is indeed the 13th car 79 as he works to the outside of these two GTE drivers through the Curva Grande as they work their way into De La Rocha. Francois Brou giving way for Cottle and allows them to continue to do battle for the 4th position. Ooh, trouble!
Oh.
And just as I say that, commentator's curse, Francois Brou makes contact with Robert Cottle. I believe Cottle got a little bit loose. That allowed Francois Brou to not check up in time. We'll get a quick replay of the incident that has just happened.
Too. We just had SimHQ1 with Morgan. She's had a spin too. I believe that was coming out of the second Lesmouth.
We'll get a replay on that here in a momentarily, but here you'll see Robert Cottle just get a little bit loose, clips the grass, try to gather back up. Francois Brou turns him around on accident, and unfortunately for him, he will go around and has to request to get the car around. But meanwhile, yes, indeed, Morgan Gillespie, she had a little bit of an issue out of the second Lesmo after running inside the top 11. She has now fallen back to 12th position after her spin.
Yeah, just overcooked the exit of the corner there. A little bit of traction loss. The car spun around, but she managed to keep it out of the wall, so big save. That car's in one piece, which is huge.
That's always probably the biggest, most important thing if you get into a self-spin is make sure you don't hit anything around you. Wait for the track to clear and then get back out on the racetrack to continue to log laps and continue on their way. As you are now on board with Robert Tarbox as he is in a hot pursuit of course, none other than Douglas Ritter in the DDM Racing as they work their way through the first Lesmo, heading down the short chute to the second Lesmo before they make the long run down towards Variante Escari as they see a little bit of a draft may kick in for Tarbox to see if he can get to the inside. It's going to be close, but not close enough for him to make a pass as they enter Escari. They will then hit the left, right, and left again as they exit out of Ascari to continue on towards the Parabolica. Not close enough for anything to happen for Tarbox.
Yeah, absolutely. They're really going for it, and it's been busy so far. We're starting to get some action towards this portion of the race so far. And speaking of action, I feel it's time to bring in one of our sponsor reads for today from none other than Penguin RC.
And what a better thing about it.
Yeah, it would be a great thing to talk about. Yes, penguins. Who doesn't love penguins? But Penguin RC makes high-quality, affordable simulation products for all sim racers, and their main products include wheel and button boxes. Crafted to excellence and care, their line of products is continually being expanded as the sim racing community expands too, specifically and especially during these trying times when everyone's racing, because it's great. The most popular unit, of course, is the PS Mod 1 wheel box, which is universal to almost all controllers and works with basically everything. Penguin RC won't produce anything at a price they wouldn't personally pay themselves. See for yourself how beautifully manufactured their work is at their website, penguinrc.com. That is penguinrc.com for all your button box needs.
Of course, when you do think action, Rachel, you cannot think nothing more than a penguin, though, to be quite honest, as we continue to...
Newt.
As we continue on with the battle for 8th position in LMP2 that we've been watching for a little bit, Robert Tarbuck Jr. still has not been able to find a way around Douglas Ritter in the DDM Racing, and not too far you see a little bit of a macaroni car coming up. That's the Kraft Dinner Racing of Eric Mahoney in his number 43, trying to catch up to them and have a little bit of a battle, make it a 3-car battle for the 8th position, coming out of Ascari, heading towards the Parabolica as they work their way down this straightaway.
Yeah, certainly are, and of course it's going to be a long, long race for them. We're looking at the first stint, I think, in terms of pits for LMP2 coming up in the next short while, I think, here, Taylor. I think that's going to be our big first decision factor on when people start to go on strategy.
Usually the P2 cars can go about 45 minutes on a full stint or tank of fuel for these drivers. GTE cars, you're looking at about an hour for those to take care of their equipment. So we should be seeing the LMP2 drivers coming down pit road in the next 15 minutes, for the GTE cars in the next 30 minutes. So we'll keep an eye and bring you all the storylines for those when they make their way down pit road. But for right now, you are on board, I believe, one of our GTE cars. Yep, Francois Brou in the Renault Alpine Racing Corvette. I still am trying to figure out why I say that, but I still do. As you see it work its way through the Parabolica as Robert Cottle in his P2 car pulls away, as we see the primer gray and purple Triple R Racing Ferrari of Stefan Bauer trying to hold off Francois Brou.
Yeah, doing what they can here to keep the track going at the moment. Has got a good view here on the confusing Corvette of Renault Alpine Racing. And that camera angle, I love that one, of course. Who makes our wonderful cameras, Taylor?
Well, it's none other than Dougie Beard who makes our wonderful cameras, and we can't thank Dougie enough for giving us all these camera angles for us to see what's going on the racetrack, as well as for all of you viewers out there watching today's coverage, as we do have our first driver to come down pit road. TNT Racing Carbon Thomas Zeiger has come down pit road, along with Everett Paddock from TNT Racing Carbon, and the Imperial Motorsports Shake of Christopher Pies.
I'm not surprised to see both those teams making the move together. It's the fight they've been in all race long. I suspect they think they're going to be there for quite a while. So pit on the same strategy, let the racetrack decide it.
Another LMP2 car has decided to come down pit road. Pneumatic Motorsports Purple of Robert Tarbox has also entered the pits. David Williams still out on the racetrack, actually now approaching some LMP2 traffic as well for him to put a lap down. The next LMP2 car he will put a lap down is Morgan Gillespie as they work their way through Ascari. Great onboard shot of him as he works through Ascari, hitting his marks and pulling away. He currently has about a 5.5 second lead over Jordan Johnson. There he is coming into frame right now. Those two teams have been probably the most dominant teams since the season had started. And we've been through some amazing tracks so far already this season, Rachel. But as we continue on, it's hard to believe after this one, we only have one more race to go.
One more? Is that it?
I think that's it.
Already?
I know, it's very sad, but don't worry. We have some exciting things we can talk about later regarding the next season, because there is a next season, but we will have more information when that time. It is, and it's great to see.
You had me going for a second there.
And don't worry, I'm glad that we were able to bring you back from that.
Oh, God, sorry. You need to calm down. I thought this was nearly over. God, no, this has been a great series, honestly. The quality of driving, the drivers we have here, the teams themselves, the series organizers, how the events are run. This is fun. People behave themselves, people race respectfully, the racing is exciting, it's clean. It's what you want to see as more cars hit pit road here, including the Mac and Cheese Boys and DDM Racing as well. But I must say, this has been a breath of fresh air for me coming back to an endurance series that I honestly was sad when you said this was the last but one. But to hear this another season will be very, very exciting. I just hope they want me back after my colourful commentary.
I'm the same way, because I'm kind of wondering that myself if I would come back. But we'll have to wait and see. Stay tuned for more info, let's just say.
Depends if Unified Performance Racing get a vote. And also Renault Alpine. Let's hope they don't. And also Kraft Dinner.
Yes. Well, Kraft Dinner, I think we've made the fun type of jokes with.
Yeah, Motorsport Shake might be kind of on the fence.
Well, they get enough of us already.
On the fence. Longhorn are definitely on the fence. But there's quite a few of them I think we've been a little bit colourful about, so we'll have to see if they get to have a say in this.
Well, I think for the Imperial Motorsports, they hear enough of us already when we handle the PCA, as we see a couple of more LMP2 cars, including our race leaders, completed their pit stops, as we see CMHQ Motorsports 1, Morgan Gillespie coming down pit road to complete her stop, WZ Red Robert Cottle also completing his pit stop. And as the pit stops are complete, your top 5 is currently this. David Williams is your race leader, followed by Jordan Johnson in second. TNT Racing Carvin with Everett Paddock in third. Christopher Pies in the Imperial Motorsports Shake is fourth. John Taylor Tammy in the Rebellion Racing rounds out your top 5 as they continue on. There is your race leader heading into the Parabolica once again. David Williams, and of course, recently I was having the pleasure of listening to some interesting interviews from Daniel Morad a couple of days ago, and it's interesting to see that DRS is possibly going to be pairing with Daniel Morad here in the next few couple of weeks or so.
That could be an exciting partnership to see going forwards, of course, as that'll make things a lot more interesting in terms of the powerhouse they already are.
It certainly is, and of course Daniel Morad, for those of you who do not know, competes in the IMSA WeatherTech Series in the GT Daytona class, but he also knows a thing or two about getting around in these LMP2 cars, as well as also in many other forms of different motorsports. In fact, Rachel, I actually sat down with him not too long ago and interviewed him. He actually competed in a couple of NASCAR Pinty Series up in Canada a couple of years ago. So he is a great character, and of course would love to see him racing out here today. But great talent out here on the track right now as we watch Francois Brou as well as Mr. Stefan Bauer do battle once again, as they have yet to pit. They should be coming down in the next 20 minutes or so as they work their way towards the Rettifilio chicanes, as they go single file, taking their time. Chevrolet versus Ferrari. As we've seen here, for the most part, these are the two main manufacturers that do battle here in the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports, as they work through the Curva Grande and heading, of course, to De La Rocha.
Yeah, these two cars have proven to be the fastest real vehicles in this series in terms of the class, and whilst there's a number of other cars, we haven't really seen any Porsches, and we haven't seen the Fords. It's really been the Corvettes and the Ferraris that have been the kind of staple cars, along with some BMWs, but it's been generally these two, so they've proven to be the current meta, if you will, in terms of manufacturers, and it's been one that's been pretty well received by those particular teams. Some drivers have been more familiar with other cars, but it's been more a matter of picking what works the best and what can be tuned the best to the various tracks they'll race.
Might have to talk to Doug Atkinson about why there is really no any Porsches in the iRacing Team Endurance Series, but that's for another day, as we see a battle happening for second. Everett Paddock trying to get around Jordan Johnson. They came out of Rettifilio, heading now through Curva Grande towards the De La Rocha chicanes. Side by side, Paddock to the inside in that gold LMP2, holding off the silver of Jordan Johnson. There they go over the curbing a little bit for Paddock. He will get the second position, though, away from Jordan Johnson. A brilliant pass.
Oh, nailed it. And again, it's that turn 1 chicane is really where we'll see a lot of these moves, because it's the biggest braking zone, biggest opportunity for a difference in speed, really, other than a pass on a straight. It sets you up perfectly.
It certainly was a great pass indeed, but will Jordan Johnson try to respond back as they head towards Ascari? As they see so far, he's not close enough to make the pass work right now as they come out of Ascari, heading through here before they get to the Parabolica. As they work their way, a little bit of a little off track for Jordan Johnson. He might have to slow it down just a little bit, but continues to do battle, but lost a ton of time on Everett Paddock.
Yeah, that's going to cost him quite a significant bit there, so something to be very aware of. It's racing G's out here at Monza, as looking like we're seeing a move potentially of TNT Carbon making a pass there on the SimHQ1 machine of Morgan Gillespie. Goes past her. She is unfortunately a lap down at this point after the incident earlier, as is Jakester Racing, or the team that lacks any Jakes, which maybe is their downfall. If they added more Jake, they'd go faster. Who knows? But TNT Carbon holding second place right now, as we mentioned. And I don't believe that VRS Satellite Racing have been in yet.
Yes, they have. VRS Satellite Racing,
yes.
Yes, they have.
They have made a driver swap, of course. So David Williams behind the wheel there. That was practice. I'm an idiot. They haven't made a driver swap yet, but they did on lap 23. Currently 26 right now, so we're starting to make some progression with this one. We're seeing definitely a tactical race unfold before us.
It certainly is. It's going to be the question of who decides to blink first for the most part. Looking through the field right now, for those who were the ones that recently pitted, or the first drivers to pit, those go to TNT Racing Carbon of Everett Paddock, I believe, one of the first drivers to pit, along with Thomas Zeiger of the TNT Racing Gold. They're currently sitting second and in sixth position. And then, of course, also the Imperial Motorsports Shake of Christopher Pye sits fourth. So a great strategy for one of the two TNT Racing Carbons, and of course for Williams and Johnson, who were managed to stay in their respective positions until Paddock got around Johnson, as Johnson is now trying to get back around Paddock as they head towards the Parabolica.
Yes, it does, of course, and the view is going to become very familiar for these guys as the laps go on, as they come down the start-finish line here for what is the 27th time, I believe, for these leading classes of cars. It's been a very, very busy race already, and it's going to go on for longer. We're only at 45 minutes here at our 3-hour race tonight, so 150 minutes is going to feel like a lifetime on this track, but the track will change significantly with this being a shorter lap, and, well, actually not a shorter lap, it's a relatively long lap. It's just a very fast track because of how straight it is. So we're going to see a lot of rubber put down in these corners, which will change the lines we're seeing. In fact, we're already seeing darkening there in the second chicane, as cars have already added to that.
Certainly is, and even though we still have a minute or an hour and 45 minutes left to go in the race, we still would like to interact with you, the fans. So if you have a question throughout the rest of today's race, don't forget to do the hashtag #AskTheBooth in the comments section today, and myself or Rachel will try our best to answer said questions as we continue here today at Monza. Of course, this is the fifth event of the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motors. Knowing how the point standing is right now, it's safe to say that we know who our champions will probably be, Rachel, David Williams and the VRS Satellite Racing, along with United Performance Racing, because we have yet had a second winner this season. It has always been those two at the top of the leaderboard, winning each and every single race we've had.
Yeah, it really is. It's definitely going to be a tricky thing to see how that one plays forwards, but it's been in that kind of realm, I think, of things we've seen today and how it really works with this, that it can add a variety that we don't often expect.
It certainly can, and it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this race, as well as the last race of the season, play out for these competitors here today and the next time we come back, as we continue on our way here, looking to find some other battles. Let's go back. If you weren't hungry earlier, we'll make you a little bit hungry now, as Eric Mahoney is trying to catch up to DDM Racing's Douglas Ritter. It's craft dinner time against DDM Racing as they come out of the Parabolica, down the front straightaway. Mahoney's trying to get the draft off of Ritter down this front straightaway before they head into the Rettifilio chicanes. He's closing in by about a car length between the two as they enter into the braking zone and not able to get anything going just yet. As they work their way through, a little bit of a slowdown there from Mahoney that will cause him some time off of Ritter as they head into the Curva Grande.
You know, with the driver called Eric Mahoney, they missed out on a trick here. Rather than being the craft dinner racing, they should have been Police Academy Racing. So they have a Mahoney. Come on, that's asking for it.
It is asking for it. It would have been.
Yeah. Either way, craft dinner racing are doing what they can right now, and I don't know why, but every time I see DDM Racing, I just think Dance Dance Revolution. Like, I don't see DDM as in DDM, I see DDR. And for all reason, I think I see people dancing in front of an arcade machine. My head goes to a weird place.
Could you imagine racing with using one of those dance machines as the controller?
I would do that.
I would give it a try, at least to do one lap on a track with that. That would be very interesting.
The real play of the game is, of course, using your racing wheel to play Counter-Strike, which I have tried once. It was really weird, but it does work.
It's interesting to see how people will utilize, we talked about one of our presenting sponsors, Penguin RC, of how complex people can utilize their controllers or sim equipment in order to help give them the best experience possible when racing here on the iRacing service or any sim, as a matter of fact. Of course, the CMS does multiple different leagues across the week and allows you to choose really what any type of racing you would like to do here for the CMS. So a big round of applause for Champions Motorsports to provide different avenues of racing and entertainment for the race fan and the drivers.
It certainly does, of course, and it's a good thing you mentioned the using different equipment and things to make things better. We talked about our sponsors. A couple of those sponsors actually do produce button boxes and equipment like that, so it's fantastic that these things are available because they make such a huge difference not only to your performance in terms of being able to use them for pit stops and strategy options to make you more efficient, not to mess around with the mouse, but you can use them for other things too. Like, they're simply button boxes. They are a joystick device in your computer, which means you can use them for other things. I've used my racing button boxes for flight simming before. They're multifunctional, so they're really worth an investment. In fact, all the cool kid Zoomers might be running around with their Stream Decks, but guess what that is? It's just the same thing with more fancy buttons.
Pretty much so for the most part, but it's still amazing to see how the world of technology has showcased it here in the sim racing world. As we continue on here today, you're on board, I believe, with our race leader overall, David Williams, as they continue on to do here at Monza. As we watch on, David Williams coming through the first Lesmo before heading into the second Lesmo. Now you're back on board with Mahoney, who gets a great run over Ritter. Side by side, Ritter has the defensive line into the Retafilia chicanes, but Mahoney is going to have a nose out over Ritter. Will he complete the pass? We'll find out. Big send for Ritter as they enter the Retafilia chicane. Ooh, a lockup right there from Mahoney. Has to let him by.
Oh, brave send there by Ritter. I wanted to say tackle bait for a second, but I changed my mind. No, Ritter did a great job there. He just sent it in. He had faith that Mahoney would hold the line. He did. A little bit of a lock-up, of course, but it was a good pass. It was I'm coming through here, the door's open, and the door was left for him, so yeah, great deal.
And that's what we've seen a lot here recently, Rachel. We saw drivers when they are going side by side, heading into the Retafilio chicanes, drivers to have that defensive line, because usually if you can get your nose out for that first inside line into Retafilio, you should be able to hold on to maintain position once you come out of it heading into Curva Grande.
You should, but you can defend around the outside here. It is very possible, as long as you have the willingness to do it and believe the other car will hold their line. Yeah, you're good.
As we see those two continue to battle out of Ascari, they are having a little bit of a gap now. It's about 1.1 seconds separating the two drivers. And really, this is the best battle out on the racetrack right now. Everyone is separated by over a second or half plus for the most part across the field. We still have all 28 cars that started the race still out on the racetrack and continuing to do battle here. As we keep an eye on the field to see if there's any other exciting news, we will still bring you all the storylines here as they continue on here at Monza for the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motors. As we see still right now, as we see Ritter and Mahoney getting around some lap traffic, that's one of the Longhorn Racing.
Yeah, it certainly is, and Longhorn have been doing what they can here with this one, and they're pushing forward still. It's going to be a long race for everybody. We're only really approaching the top of that first hour, so with that in mind, folks, before we go back to give you our full field rundown so far in this one today, we're going to step aside for a couple of moments for a sights and sounds of Monza. Enjoy the onboards.
Welcome back to coverage of the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports, live from the virtual Monza. Taylor Burris, Rachel Whiteford, and Ryan Bauer bringing you all the coverage, storylines, and pictures, and of course the camera work provided by Dougie Beard. Pit stops are happening now in the GTE class, Rachel. Unified Performance Racing's Justin Hess has just completed a pit stop along with SimHQ Motorsports and their cars, Triple R Racing and Longhorn Racing. So we should be seeing the rest of the GTE field coming down pit road.
Yeah, certainly should be in the near moments. We're into that cycle now where that will be becoming the factor we see here. The GT cars do run a bit longer than the LMP cars, so the two cycles are quite distinctly different here with how this runs. And it's opening kind of the field up here in terms of what our traffic's looking like, but we're seeing a good bit of racing here. Craft Dinner and DDM are still on top of each other here as they go for a move actually into Parabolica.
Great battle right there between the two. Mahoney's on the inside of Ritter as they come through the Parabolica, out of corner exit. A little bit of GTE traffic right in front of him. That is, of course, coming down pit road now as more of our GTE cars. That's the Can-Am Canucks of Tim Collier in the 121 BMW. But Mahoney now has the inside advantage over Ritter as they make their way down the front straightaway, heading into the Rettifilio chicanes. Ritter tries to go in a little deeper, can't quite make it work. Give the position back over to Eric Mahoney.
Yeah, certainly is, of course, and Mahoney's doing what he can to try and keep the place ahead here. And it's been back and forth between these two cars in terms of what they're actually doing on track. He's ahead right now, but I think they're going to be back and forth all race long with this thing. I'm also pretty surprised to see Pneumatic Blue ahead of Purple. They must have had some sort of incident we've not seen here, as the entire cycle has really changed things up towards the front here. We've seen, other than VRS still being out front, TNT Carbons are holding second pretty securely, third being CMS Pro Summit. They're decently ahead, but we've seen TNT Gold drop back behind Rebellion by quite a margin.
Certainly is so, as we keep an eye and watching to see as the battle continues on through Ascari between those two drivers. As we keep an eye, still nothing major is happening yet. The rest of the GTE field has completed their pit stops or is working on it. As we finish up here with the GTE stops, a couple more are coming off. We will then give you the full field rundown of today's race so far, as we have approached 1 hour completed and 1.5 hours to go. And of course, today's race report is brought to you by Penguin RCs. We just talked about them. For all your equipment needs for sim racing, button boxes, and many more, visit them at Penguin RCs. And of course, we will see some great racing action as we continue to give you the report. VRS Satellite Racing's David Williams is currently your race leader. He has got on the pole and never looked back as he continues to hold on to the race lead. Down in second position, TNT Racing Carbon's Everett Paddock, with some decent strategy calls in his pit stop cycle, was able to get second place away after starting in the middle of the pack here today. In third, CMS Pro Summit Team's Jordan Johnson, who has had a quiet run right now, was up as high as second but has dropped back to third as trying to catch up to Paddock in the TNT Racing Carbon. Fourth position, the Imperial Motorsports Shake. Christopher Pye's behind the wheel with Mr. Chip up in the pit box, trying to make sure that he gets his drivers up into the podium position later on today. Fifth position, Thomas Zeiger in the fifth spot in the TNT Racing Gold. The sister car is rounding out your top five. And right behind him is actually a decent battle. P6, John Taylor Tammy in the Rebellion Racing P2 car, trying to see if he can run down and get into the top five as they work their way through Curva Grande. In seventh position, the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue and Pneumatics Motorsports Purple of Jason Lundy in the blue car is in seventh, with the sister car of Robert Tarbox in eighth spot. We talked about him for a majority of this recently. The DDM Racing of Douglas Ritter is in ninth as they are trying to hold off the Craft Dinner Racing of Eric Mahoney in 10th position. 11th position, having a quiet race, the first car 1 lap down in class, is Hard Promise Racing, with Wayne Hutchinson behind the wheel in the plaid LMP2 car as they work their way through. And then, of course, in 12th position, the Jakester Racing, the car without a Jake of Robert Tornello, is in 12th position. 13th position is WWZ Red of Robert Cottle. And 14th, rounding out your LMP2 field, is Morgan Gillespie in that number 12 SimHQ Motorsports 1. Rachel?
Absolutely, and of course, first is the Notari of Unified Performance Racing with Justin Hess behind the wheel. Car 37 has been in the lead all day long, and, well, they might be grey, they should be red, but they're definitely ahead. And that hurt my soul to say. P2 is SimHQ Motorsports 2, Nolan Kinslow in the 34 car, 23 seconds behind your class leader there, but they've had a pretty quiet race so far for them. P number 3 in class is 57 car of Last Minute Racing, Julie Redmond behind the wheel, so 2 girls in today's race, that's cool. As that BMW is putting up a great performance so far in 3rd place and one of their highest runs. 4th is Triple R Racing with Leonard Burke behind the wheel, the 71 car, 42 seconds back from class leader. Ferrari is doing another great job, although it is also disappointingly grey. 5th place is NGP's Michael Ogren in the 88 car. The BMW there wearing the correct colour for a Ferrari on a BMW. Now I'm confused. P6 is the Can-Am Canucks, the 121 machine, piloted by Tim Collier at the moment, 53 seconds back from the class leader. Doing a great job, and always been one of my favourite paint schemes in the series, actually, that one. 7th in class is the 56 car of SimHQ Motorsports 3, Connor Denny behind the wheel there. The 3rd of their fielded entries for the day, 2nd in the GT class. Doing a good job. P8 is the 69 car of Renault Alpine Racing with Hendrik de Savort behind the wheel. They dropped back significantly here after an incident earlier, and they've pitted already, so they're off cycle at this point in time. I believe that is actually because they pitted. We've got Longhorn Racing Lone Star with Brett Stevens behind the wheel. 78 car is a couple laps down from class lead, or 1 from class lead I should say. They've had a bit of a tough race so far. Now they're only up 1 place in the field. P10 is Team Brake Fade with James Holman. They are currently sitting up 1 place from where they started in today's race. The 40 car BMW there is putting on a good show. Can-Am Express with P11 is the 85 car of Brian Slubisky, and so far they've been having a pretty quiet race actually. They're up 2. Longhorn Racing, the sister car of Lone Star, started 26th and is 26th in the 44 machine there. Larry Ford behind the wheel of that Ferrari. You'd think they'd be driving a GT, but apparently not. Behind them is All Balls Racing and Paul Hamilton in their Chevrolet Ferrari? That's a Corvette, never mind. It is a Corvette, so it's an appropriate decal. I got confused for a second because everybody else is changing their badges. Paul Hamilton having a great time out today. They're up, well, unfortunately down a couple of spots. MMTR currently, I believe, last on track here today. They are piloted by Stephen Rivard. The 33 car is 14th in class, and they are starting where they, running where they started, in 14th in class.
And with that, that is your full field rundown, of course, powered by Penguin RCs. Of course, make sure to visit Penguin RCs. That makes the best high quality and affordable simulation products for all sim racers. Make sure to visit them at penguinrcs.com. Back at it here at Monza. David Williams still race leader in LMP2, as well as Unified Performance Racing's Justin Hess in the GTE field right now as they continue on. Really, everything is still kind of quiet throughout the field except for the battle for the 9th position, as we see Eric Mahoney trying to snake his way through some GTE traffic to catch back up to Robert Cottle, or actually Douglas Ritter, actually, in the DDM Racing, as they come out of the Parabolica down the front straightaway here. A little bit of GTE traffic in front of them. That's one of the Can-Am Express cars. I believe that might be, let's see, Tim Collier in his Corvette, as they'll go back at it once again into the Retafilio chicanes. And still close racing, couldn't quite get it controlled quickly enough for those drivers that allow Ritter to pull away.
Certainly does, of course, and Ritter and his cohort, shall we say, on the track of Mahoney have been at this thing all day, back and forth, back and forth. We've seen them change positions all day long, and it's been crazy. Last 2 cars in the lap for the the LMP class. It's been a very busy one for them. They've been probably the biggest fight we've seen all day.
It certainly is, Rachel. These two have been putting on a great show for the viewers here today, as we are back on board with P6 of John Taylor Tammy. We talked about them briefly during the full field rundown when they were he was doing battle with TNT Racing Gold Thomas Zeiger, as this is the battle for 5th position. They're heading into the first chicane right now with some GTE traffic up ahead of them. We'll see how that will come into play as Taylor Tammy gets a good run out of the Rettifilio chicane, heading down towards Curva Grande as they work their way through. Not close enough to make anything happen right now as they enter De La Rocha, but with the GTE traffic ratio, that could come into play a little bit as we see there's the pass for Zeiger to get around one of the GTE Corvettes. Couldn't catch who that might be. That might be the All Balls. Nope, that is not the All Balls Racing. That is a different car. That's the MMTR of Steven Richards are getting around.
Yeah, certainly is. Oh, side by side, a little bit of contact there between Kraft and DDM as they came out of the first chicane there. Kraft came out on top, just like the macaroni.
As we see it rise to the top of the position inside the top 10, here is the race replay of that. You will see Douglas Ritter trying to utilize the slipstream, go to the outside as they enter towards the Rettifilia chicanes. We see Mahoney hold the inside, crosses back over, and there's the contact just barely between the two, allowing Mahoney to get back into ninth.
Yeah, it does it indeed, and it's been busy between those two so far. Really, really busy on track. We've not seen as much racing in the GTE field today, actually. It's been relatively quiet down there for them, but it has been incredibly busy for that particular pairing, I should say, at least, in our LMP2 field. Everyone else is kind of spread out a bit here. Although we have got some side-by-side between Pneumatic Blue and a lap car. It's Jakester, minus the Jakes. Robert Tornello behind the wheel of that car. As Pneumatic Blue have been pushing forward here, gaining some spots back from where they started. They're up to 7th now.
They certainly are, as they continue on their way. Jason Lundy having a great run in the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue. As one of the lap cars contact, around goes Lundy up over one of the curbings. Still going over the curbings as he tries to get it going around. That was contact with Robert Tornelli in the Jakester Racing, so that's going to be something looked at by race officials. Take a look at the replay. Enter into the braking zone. The Jakester Racing will make contact with Jason Lundy as Robert Tornelli still cutting through the grass after missing completely the first Lesmo here. As we'll watch right now, there's the contact. There goes around Lundy. And there you'll see Robert Tornelli still out on the track, continuing on his way.
Yeah, certainly does, of course. And the racetrack today is performing pretty well for these guys. Weather conditions have been really favorable for the race today. We're looking at about 25 Celsius with a track temperature of 34 Celsius. It's partly cloudy weather. Winds from the southeast about 9 kilometers an hour and a humidity of about 47%. So it's been really good conditions for racing today. The track is slightly on this touch of cool side compared to how it could be. So it's really grippy.
It certainly is really grippy out there, so a lot of high speed, a lot of great racing as Lundy is going to come down pit road to get the required service as you're on board with the 10th place driver of Douglas Ritter, who is going to continue on his way in the 10th spot, trying to see if he can catch back up to Eric Mahoney. He's now back 2 seconds from Eric Mahoney, 2.8 to be exact, as we watch on the battle for second has heated, or the battle for the race lead actually, Rachel, is heating up. TNT Racing Carbon's Everett Paddock has caught David Williams in the VRS Satellite Racing.
Yeah, they have, and VRS Satellite could definitely be into a spicy situation here as TNT Carbon could be looking at taking the lead away for the first time in 43 laps here, as they're going to be split by SimHQ. I believe that's going to be 1.
Well, no.
Oh, no, it was SimHQ 3, sorry.
Paddock decides to come down pit road.
He does. Interesting timing. So it could have been on the end of his stint there, which is why he gained up so much time.
Let's see. Looking at his stint right now, he was probably out on a fuel run for about 10 laps, or about 20 laps or so. So about make it 21, 22 laps, because he came around the same time as Christopher Pies and his teammate of also in the TNT Racing Gold, who actually also just came down pit road, along with the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of James Stacy, who's now behind the wheel. TNT Racing Gold also did a driver change. Fabio Berchtold will get in the car. So we have a couple of new drivers out on the racetrack for the P2 class. No changes really going on well, actually a couple of changes in the GTE field as well. But right now you see the Renault Alpine Racing Corvette. Francois Bru was in the car originally, now it's Hendrik de Zwarts, who is behind the wheel of the Corvette. As they enter into Ascari, you're on board with Hendrik as they work through the Ascari. Right here, hitting the bumps right there through the left, right, left again, continuing on, off there, heading towards the Parabolica.
They do indeed, and what a phenomenal corner, of course, that you have to come through for this track. And it's a blast to actually ride through that corner. It's a lot of fun, actually. It feels like you're being shot out of a cannon when you exit that corner, actually, the speed that it builds up.
It certainly is, Rachel. It just provides the little bit more excitement here at this track that just makes this track so unique compared to any other motor circuit across the world, and why so many people love coming to this track and enjoying great racing action here.
Certainly is, of course. It's a beautiful track to watch racing at because of the speeds and the visibility here. You get to see so much of the various sections you set up at. I must say, around Lesmos is a pretty popular place, but the most popular location on the track to watch this race is around the Lesmos to the start-finish line.
Well, of course, if you...
Ascari, not the Lesmos, even.
I was getting ready to say, I'm like, Ascari, I think is the better choice than the Lesmos, because the Lesmos towards the back half.
Yes.
But also, if you think about the victory celebrations that happen here when Formula One especially comes to Monza, how the crowds just erupt when the race winners come across the line. They'll actually just leap over the fences heading towards the victory, the podium celebration ceremonies as well. And it's phenomenal to watch these fans just cheer on their favorite driver. And it gets a little bit crazier, though, when a Ferrari ends up either on the podium or definitely for the race win.
Oh, absolutely. Ferrari wins at Monza, it is a very, very good day. Absolutely exactly what the people here want, and when they get it, they are incredibly happy. And there's nothing at all like Ferrari's home fans.
Certainly is the case here, as if I'm remembering correctly, yes, in fact, the World Endurance Championship will be making its debut here at Monza later on this year. So also another reason to make sure to enjoy sports car racing action, because more of it's happening at this track with the World Endurance Championship coming here, I believe, for their first time in quite some time.
Yeah, it certainly is, of course, and that'll be exciting to see them to do that here. I must say, in terms of being an enduro track, it's great for endurance racing because it is relatively simple, but at the same time that makes it kind of boring for endurance viewers because it becomes a very processional race. For the drivers, it's great because it gives them time to relax between corners, which for longer events makes it very, very tenable. I do suspect it won't be more than a 6-hour event, though, most likely.
Yeah, it's the 6 hours of Monza later on this year, and if I was looking correctly, it will happen, I believe, later on this summer, after, of course, the season openers at Spa and Portimao, since the 24 hours of Le Mans has moved to an August date.
It'll be for the best of everything, really, especially with things hoping to improve soon.
And that's the thing we hope to see, is where everything improves, especially after a very interesting year last year in 2020. Of course, Italy, one of the heaviest hit areas when the COVID outbreak happened, Rachel. And I'm pretty sure when things open back up here in this country, a lot of fans were excited to come back to these circuits when they are able to.
What is the... Obviously, motorsport is a very distinct category where we have seen some of it continue, but of all sports, what is the one, as we see VRS Satellite Racing head to pit road now, which will put them back on sequence with TNT Carbon, what is the one sport, and I'm going to leave this open to sports full stop, what is the one sport you can't wait to return to a normal schedule?
Ooh, that's a tough one. And to just clarify, normal schedule, do you mean where everything is kind of what it was before COVID, if I may ask you, Rachel, correctly?
Or at least a full running schedule with fans. The whole thing.
Well, really, if you think about it, here in the United States, that's kind of already been happening for the most part with all major sports for the most part.
Well, you guys have been a bit special with that, but we won't go into politics. Go on, pick a sport, any sport.
But I would just have to say motor racing in general, where fans can go back into the garages and meet their favorite race car drivers. Because that's one of the things that, if a race fan or a person who wants to learn more about motorsports, that's the place you take them as well, to let them meet the drivers, to learn about the cars. I mean, yes, you have American football, and of course, football or soccer as well, that in other sports here across the world, that allows people to meet maybe some of them occasionally. But really, if you think about it, Rachel, there is no other sport in the world that allows you to get up close and personal with your heroes in the motor racing world.
There actually are a couple, but the one I want to pick up for this is my personal choice in this one, and it's been, in particular, the UCI's Downhill World Championship for mountain biking. Now, there's enduro racing, but that's a lot more spread out, but the downhill is really the motorsports of the bike world, and I'll explain why. Because whilst it's very much just a one-shot, for the weekend, and it's that one run that means everything, there's multiple runs they're doing, but it's the crowd, like motor racing. The crowd makes it, and whether that crowd is at home watching on TV, it's nothing compared to it being there in real life. It's nothing compared to seeing the tape alongside the trail, lined with fans, with chainsaws, with, banging bits of metal, with the cowbells. Just that energy and the screaming fans makes it a different world. Having watched it this year, the very truncated season they had, it was so weird seeing them run down these trails in almost silence, apart from the marshals. It took away from it, and it took away from the atmosphere for the riders too, but also viewing it at home. But that's one of those other sports that's almost akin to motorsports in that regard of you can get right up and personal with the riders themselves as you do in motor racing. The access is almost greater, I'd say, to the riders, even on the top pro level in the world. I think it's just something about wheels. Sports involving wheels tends to be a lot more of a fan-friendly environment, whether it's motor racing, motorbikes, mountain bikes, road bikes even to an extent, extreme sports, things like skateboarding, rollerblading, all those wheeled sports in general are the best. Who knew?
I can't remember, for anyone who remembers, I can't remember the author who made this quote, but it's mountain biking, motor racing, and rock climbing, motor racing, and bull riding are true sports. Everything else is just a game for the most part.
Rock climbing is a sport.
I don't think so either, but it was mountain climb. I don't get it either, but that's what they said. I can't remember the author who made that quote.
I've seen competitive rock climbing, and it normally happens in like a gymnasium setup. And people kind of ninja Spider-Manning up a wall, but I wouldn't say I count that as a sport per se.
It takes skill, though.
It does take incredible skill, incredible talent. As we're going to have a look here to see what VRS Satellite Racing can do to cycle back with TNT Carbon, who are coming through Parabolica right now. So they may have actually skipped them here on the cycle, which could be huge for them. But I think you have to directly compete against somebody in a full contact for it to be a sport per se. Otherwise it's just a game. But there's nothing wrong with things being a game. Games are incredible as well, and there are lots of amazing ones of those. But I just think, I don't know why, but everything that has wheels on it tends to make it a better sport or game or whatever. I think it's just that ever since we invented the wheel, we've found ways to see who's better with them.
Certainly is.
What those wheels are on.
Currently, right now, the one who has the best wheels is Everett Paddock, your race leader in the TNT Racing Carbon LMP2 car. as they have already come down pit road for their second time, beating out Paul Darling in the VRS Satellite Racing P2 car, as we see them work their way through. So the first driver changes have happened in the P2 class. We also see Chris Kymailer now in the CMS Pro Summit team. Matthew Kikas now joining the Imperial Motorsports Shake in his. And James Stacy we touched on earlier, making a driver change. And Tatus Lucas in the number 3 Rebellion Racing now behind the wheel, trying to hold off the TNT Racing Gold of Fabio Berchtold, and Jimmy Hune in the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple.
Yeah, certainly is, and it's becoming quite interesting to see how this team is moving forwards here, because they've gone backwards whilst Blue, who had a rough start and in fact had to miss the entire first chicane for an epic slowdown that cost him a huge amount of time, has gone ahead of them. So we've seen a real change in the performance and fortunes here, because it's normally been Pneumatic Purple that's been the faster car out of that duo.
Certainly is the case right now, Rachel, as we see the time starting to change more so. It's now down to 22 seconds, but like you brought out, is over a second's difference in times between the two drivers as they continue on their way. Throughout the rest of the field, there's actually a couple of battles in the GTE class happening as well. Triple R Racing's Leonard Burke trying to run down Connor Denny in the SimHQ Motorsports 3, as those two will do battle for the 6th or 5th position in class.
Yeah, certainly will. I'm looking forward to seeing how this one actually does go through for us, what we're looking at the moment, but it's been interesting actually, as apparently I've gotten my times confused here, because we apparently have less race left than I thought we did. Unless I'm looking at the clock wrongly, it says we've got 1 hour and 7 minutes remaining.
Well, your clock says right. We do have 1 hour and 7 minutes remaining. We've completed 50 laps here out of the 92 scheduled distance. And of course, with 1 hour and 7 minutes to go, we still have a lot great racing action and a couple of more pit stops at the very least for the entire field. I would at least say 2 more pit stops for our GTE field and possibly about 2 to 3 more pit stops for our LMP2 field as we continue on our way.
It certainly does. Well, you know what? There's definitely one group here that help keep us on our way. And that segues us nicely into Grid Finder. Grid Finder is your go-to source for sim racing leagues. Grid Finder is currently home to over 500 leagues across all gaming platforms, covering 10 different racing sims. Need a commentator or broadcaster for your races? Search Grid Finder. Need a livery designer for your next car? Grid Finder. And Grid Finder has teamed up with the sim racing community to create a sim racing calendar in support of the men's mental health charity CALM. That is the Campaign Against Living Miserably. 100% of the profits will be going to CALM, and you can visit grid-finder.com to purchase a calendar to keep track of all your races and support a great charity. And on top of that, you can use it to find all the wonderful things you need for your sim racing experience. Grid Finder, the home of online sim racing leagues, at www.grid-finder.com.
And we can't thank Grid Finder enough for allowing us to bring the coverage here today at Monza with the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports. As we continue on their way here, a couple of more great racing battles happening throughout the field. I'm looking through, of course, we see the battle for 6th position between Rebellion Racing and the TNT Racing Gold in 6th spot in LMP2. As you're on board with the Rebellion Racing number 3 trying to hold off Fabio Berchtold as they head into, I believe, the Retafilio chicane once again here as they look to the inside. Can't get the pass completed. Right on the back bumper. Tatus Lacutis as they work their way to Curva Grande.
Yeah, certainly are, and Curva Grande is one of those beautiful corners where you are flat out through the whole thing, and it just feels like flying through Italian countryside. I know there's a massive concrete wall there, but it genuinely feels like one of those really beautiful corners where you could just put the hammer down.
It certainly is, and it's really a beautiful course to look at overall, Rachel. I mean, just the scenery of this track when you're driving through here is phenomenal, I would have to say, especially when you're coming through the Curva Grande, like you pointed out, through the Parabolica as well. Those long sweeping corners that help just propel you off to set up for the straightaways is phenomenal racing.
Yeah, it certainly is, of course, but it'll take some time, I think, to really see how this fully evolves out. But I'm going to be interested to see how things shake out towards the front and if there's a strategy difference here at play between VRS Satellite and TNT Racing Carbon.
Certainly is, and with those two battling, that's going to allow Jimmy Hume in the Pneumatic Motorsports purple car to make up some ground. He's about 2.3 seconds back from these two as they come through the Parabolica. Out of corner exit, Fabio Berchtold trying to get a good run, not close enough. It's about 2 car lengths separating. Now 1.5. Soon to be down to 1. Will Berchtold find a way around Lukitas as they work their way through? He gets to the inside. He has the inside lane advantage. Can Lucas hold or Tadas hold off as they go through? Ooh, a little bit of a slide. Will he hold on to it? And did he cut the corner? So far, no slow penalty for Fabio Berchtold.
Yeah, certainly is, of course, and they are pushing super hard right now, and it's that fight we've been seeing for quite a while in this thing that we're really watching unfold yet again here. But it's been very busy on this track as Rebellion really just want to get through here, and TNT Gold not really wanting to play ball with this one. They want that position themselves, but there's going to be a long one in front of them. I wonder who's got the cow catcher.
We'll find out soon enough here as they come through the second Lesmo right now. Fabio Berchtold trying to find a way around the Longhorn as he'll go to the outside. Oh, we see Lukitas trying to get around. That's going to allow bring in Jimmy Hume. So 3 cars battling as they enter into Ascari. And it's nose to tail for those 3 drivers as they battle for the 6th position.
Yeah, certainly are, and 6th position is evolving here as we see Rebellion come up the inside for a fight back. Inside of Parabolica, and look at what this fighting's done. It's brought Pneumatic Purple into the fight, so we have a 3-way in LMP2 for the first time this race. This could definitely get spicy.
Very spicy indeed for these drivers as they work their way up through the front straightaway here, heading into the Rettifilio chicane. Slight contact almost made as there's a little bit of lap traffic. More contact made as they try to get around, as there could be another 3rd set of contact made as one of the Can-Am Express BMWs tries to find a way to get out of harm's way and continue on. But Jimmy Hume had a front row seat for that action.
Yeah, the GT car there had the right idea. That was I'ma just get out your way so you can fight this out amongst yourselves. Don't involve me in your crap, he said, as those 3 came piling through there. Definitely made things a little spicier, I think, than they needed to be. But hey, that's racing.
Certainly is. That is racing indeed as they continue on their way here. As Jimmy Hume has fallen back just a little bit to the 2 drivers in front of him, but will eventually make his way back up through the field pretty soon as they continue on here at Monza. Working through Ascari right now, you see Jimmy Hume trying to find a way back around Tadas Lukitas as they work their way towards the Parabolica. He gets a good run. He's less than a car length between. He dives to the inside. Side by side, they will go through the Parabolica. He has the inside advantage, but Lukitas could have the outside momentum to propel him out ahead of Jimmy Hume as he will now still hold on to the 7th spot.
Yeah, he's doing what he can here to really push this one, and Hume is looking for an opportunity. It's allowed TNT Gold to kind of pull away here a little bit, but they're still within the realm of this fight being something they could definitely get involved in, and, well, they could be interesting once they get lapped, because TNT Carbon and Everett Paddock is coming right up behind them here. He's just crossed under the archway to start this lap, and those guys are just in Curva Grande.
They certainly are. It just shows the speed that Everett Paddock has right now over Paul Darling. Darling ran a little bit faster last time by, but actually the fastest lap of the race goes to Everett Paddock with a 136.335 as he is running the fastest lap as we see them now in the 137. So a second has pretty much dropped off their cars right now. Yeah,
it certainly has, as is changing, especially with the amount of fighting they're doing, and that will cost them time, which of course is allowing them to really bunch things up with this and how the racing really unfolds. Yeah, you'll always lose time fighting, and you have to take a defensive line. It's not as efficient.
It certainly is the case. We'll keep track and see what will happen. Can we see these drivers? Currently 8 cars on the lead lap overall and in the LMP2 class. And really in the GTE class, 2 cars are on the lead lap. For them, of course, it is Unified Performance's Justin Hess over Nolan Kinslow, who has gotten behind the wheel of the SimHQ Motorsports 2. It's still, of course, Ferrari versus Chevrolet. And it's about 39 seconds separating those 2 drivers. Here we look at right now one of our LMP2s. It's the Pneumatic Motorsports against, of course, Rebellion Racing. They got as they work their way through. And as we watch this battle right here, Rachel, the battle is between these 3 drivers. It's starting to spread out a little bit as we see Lukitas have a little bit of issues slowing down off pace compared to the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple of Jimmy Humes. We'll have to see if he's able to find a way, or will strategy come into play for these drivers as they still have some pit stops left.
Yeah, they certainly do, of course, and we're expecting at least, probably with this, maybe 2 more for the, or at least 1 more at least for both classes, but possibly maybe 2 depending on how they can stretch it. Maybe a splash and dash for the LMP2s after a final stop with tyres.
I would possibly agree. These drivers need to at least get 1 more stop where they add tires. I know pretty much some drivers might have taken just fuel only on the previous stop, so we'll have to wait and see. But while everyone else enjoys this, enjoy the sights and sounds here at Monza. Welcome back to coverage of the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports live from Monza. Taylor Burris, Rachel Whiteford, bringing you all the storylines with our producer Ryan Bauer and cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Still under an hour to go today as we continue on. It is TNT Racing Carbon's Everett Paddock with the race lead, along with Unified Performance Racing's Justin Hess in their Ferrari, as they continue on here today. As you actually see, I believe that could be our race leaders of both classes working there in shots. So what a great shot by our producer and Ryan Bauer, just showing us the two leaders as we were just talking about them, Rachel.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and you catch me with a mouthful of pizza, so I apologise. Now, it's been an incredible race, and these two cars have put up a real fight this season. They've shown why they're out front. But TNT Carbon, of course, being the outsider in this regard, because it's normally Revo Satellite or now Viera Satellite that we're talking about in that regard, so that is a big difference in time. 21 seconds. The strategy could be different, and I think we will see that as we get towards the end of the race. They will see a strategy difference here, that they've taken perhaps an extra splash early. I think that's what they've done. I think they've factored in they will need a splash at the end, and they've chosen instead to take that in the middle of the race, to actually let them run their cycle to the end, which will result in a big advantage. So I'm calling that now.
A good call indeed. We'll have to keep track to see if that's what's going to happen here, as we see a couple of cars right now on screen. That's Jimmy Hume in the Pneumatic Motorsports purple, trying to hold off Fabio Berchtold in TNT Racing gold, and as well as the Rebellion Racing a little further back of Tadeusz Lukitas, who is not too far back. But right now the battle for sixth back underway between Hume and Berchtold as they work through the Parabolica, getting around one of the SimHQ Motorsports Corvettes off the corner exit, as Jimmy Hume will hold on and maintain position for the time being as they work down the front straightaway.
Yeah, certainly are, and those TNT cars distinctive on the racetrack there as you see them flying by. And it's going to be a pretty big fight still with that group, as once again they're behind a Can-Am car, which is probably filling him with joy to see, as the SimHQ Motorsports 1 LMP1 car behind them there, as we'll see up here. Although that car is actually a lap down from these cars running here on lead lap still. TNT Carbon going after Pneumatic Purple, who are now P5 and 6 with their sister car Blue.
Yep, that's James Stacy behind the wheel of the blue car, as in fifth spot. As we see them on screen right now, they currently hold a 11-second lead, or no, 16-second lead over their sister car of Jimmy Hume right now, who's in a battle, who's starting to separate away from Fabio Berchtold after the help of the Can-Am Express Corvette, that they just worked their way around for the most part and continue on their way. And looking through the field right now, we have in the GTE class 5 cars on the same lap in that class. Justin Hess, Nolan Kinslow, Hendrik Desworks, Tim Collier, and Connor Denny, your top 5, as well as those on the lead lap, while we have 8 cars on the lead lap in class for the LMP2s.
Certainly are, and we actually have an Ask the Booth question in the chat from David Anderson, which is, has Rachel ever been to Monza? No, I have not. But I have been to Pompeii, Herculaneum, and climbed Mount Vesuvius. So I actually spent quite a bit of time in the south of Italy in Sorrento, the region just below Naples. Wonderful place. I was studying Latin at the time, and it was actually a school trip, but it was one of those life-changing experiences that made me love that country so much. I have never been to the north. I would love to go to the north of Italy one day, and Monza is one of those motorsports cathedrals I would love to visit.
Certainly is a beautiful country to visit, whether you go to the south near the coast or up the northern part here, as we are in Monza, as we watch on the battle here and continue on. And of course, Rachel is our world traveler pretty much, so it's not a surprise that she has not been to Monza in the northern Italy, but of course we did expect she was in Italy once before.
Well, yeah, fair enough. I wouldn't say I'm a world traveler, but I've been around a bit, so we'll go with that. Now, motorsports is a wonderful thing to travel for. Races are fantastic. I did get to go to the, it was actually one of the rounds of the German DTM series, the touring cars. at Nuremberg. It was an awesome race, and it was especially potent. Sorry, I'm having a stroke. Especially potent to me because in Nuremberg the track is a street course, right?
Okay.
The section of the main grandstands, there is something people probably have forgotten about Nuremberg. It was the host of most of Hitler's rallies for the Nazi Party. You saw the speeches of him on a huge stage with the eagle and the crowds over a huge parade ground. Yeah, that's where the race takes place. And that one stage, that large area where all the party officials sat, is the main grandstand for the DTM race there. So what was the site of so much hatred and pain and suffering has become a cathedral to motorsports and to racing, and they use that once terrible place to have people cheering people on for once, not screaming hatred. So it's a real turnaround, and those cars are noisy. They are great fun. And surprisingly enough, there are 9 Irish bars in Nuremberg. Go figure.
That is interesting, but of course, Rachel, speaking of the DTM, it's sad to say that formula of DTM is no longer going to be in existence now when they kick off their 2021 season, since they're going to the GT3 platform for this season, which is kind of sad, but unfortunately the way the world and manufacturers are changing their focuses in motorsports is always a constant thing to change, but unfortunately that class will no longer be in existence.
Yeah, it's basically a cost thing because, of course, the DTM cars are similar to BTCC cars, WTCC, etc. They are tube frame race cars, so they're a custom-built race chassis that has a body put over it. Now, that's actually way more expensive than buying essentially a factory GT3 car, and you will be able to you can buy the GT3 chassis or the cars themselves from the manufacturers, so the GT3 spec race cars are purchasable. It's much cheaper, unfortunately, so it makes sense, especially with how the racing economy suffered this year.
It certainly is, but I know some drivers who are pretty happy about not making any damage, even though this is virtual racing. There is nothing major money as far as if you damage your race car, but we do have a couple of clean drivers out there. Paul Darling, of course, in the VRS Satellite Racing, 0 incidents since the start of this race. So he has not made contact with anything on the track, nor has gone off track at all as they continue on the way here with less than 45 minutes to go. So a great drive for him. Of course, Matthew Kikis in the Imperial Motorsports Shake with Christopher Pies has only 4 incidents in 4th position, and then P8 of course, Taras Lukitas has 2 incidents. So LMP2 being very clean for the most part here today.
Yes, certainly is, of course, and LMP2 has been our busy section today. The GTE class has been relatively quiet. The Notari of Unified Performance Racing has been almost unchallenged here today. It's been a really, really, really high performance fight from them. For example, they're currently running through the second Lesmos right now, and Simic Q2 in second place is only just now getting to the first chicane. They're half a lap ahead. It's a monumental difference. In fact, most, if not all, of the GT class are really, really far apart. It has been incredibly impressive, to say the least, as TNT Carbon hit pit road. So here's our big change, and this is where we'll see VRS Satellite not pit, I believe. And TNT Carbon will drop back to second place as they hit their pit box, as does their sister car, TNT Gold. I believe we're going to driver swap for Carbon to Scott McIntyre. We'll see if CMS Pro Summit come in as well. Pneumatic Blue is on pit road. TNT Gold's on pit road. Going to be Fabio Berchtold for them. Rebellion's just spun out in the second chicane. Tedas Lutkus looped that car at the second chicane. He will be rejoining now after losing place to DDM. But we'll see. VRS has taken the lead here considerably on TNT Carbon, so this could be the strategy actually unfolding now.
It could be, so we'll have to keep track and see what will happen. He has about a 21-second advantage over Chris Kymailer in the CMS Pro Summit team. Matthew Kikas now moves up to third position with the TNT Racing Carbon of Scott McIntyre still getting his driver change complete. He should be coming off pit road here in the next couple of seconds. A long stop indeed. Of course, it is a driver change, so it will take a little bit longer. 57.8 second pit stop. And his entire time on pit road was 1 minute 24. So very interesting strategy right there. We'll see if that works out for him as the Pneumatic Motorsports purple of Jimmy Hume has come down pit road.
Yeah, certainly have, as they'll all be coming in for this segment now as we get into our final section here of the race. Looking at this now, we have 40 minutes left. So this is, I think, just on the outside of a window, perhaps?
Just around that, I would say, Rachel. We should be seeing these LMP2 cars coming down pit road for their final stop. Yeah, these should be full
stops now.
Yeah, this should be 4 tires and fuel as well, or 2 tires for some who decide to be brave if they need to, but I would be shocked if anybody decided to do that. But it's just a matter of if they took tires on their last stop, whether or not to take tires, but it will be a full tank of fuel.
Yeah, I expect so. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with this, and maybe this means VRS will... I don't know, like they're off sequence here, and I'm really curious to find out whether they go for a dash at the end, or this is everyone who's taking early dashes coming in now. But with driver swaps coming in now, it seems quite late for that with 40 to go.
We will have to wait and see. Of course, that's the interesting things when it comes to motor racing.
See that?
Yeah, what was that?
The Alpine Renault Corvette thing. 2 wheels coming through the second chicane there. That was a big jump there on the curbs.
So a Renault that thinks it's a Corvette that thinks it's a Renault and a motorcycle. What more could you ask for?
It's a motorcycle. I think it thinks it was doing Stadium Super Trucks here at the second chicane. Watch this coming through, and hudunk. It looked much more impressive from the other camera angle, but that was a really good run through there.
That is Hendrik de Zwarts in the third position, car 69, having a good run. He's been in the top 5 pretty much all race, as our GTE leaders. Kurt Poulter is now in the car in the United Performance Racing Primer Ferrari. Still getting his pit stops handled right now, as a couple of more GTE cars are on pit road. Actually, that's the NGP of Michael Ogren, who is still on pit road, who's had trouble all race long with some issues, unfortunately, and probably will not get to finish the race.
Yeah, unfortunate for those guys, but the tables are still pretty wide open, and I'm definitely getting curious about this strategy call now, because that 20-second gap, I don't think it's enough for a... I think this must be... I don't know. Because VRS can't go that long on fuel, and it's been more than 10-15 minutes since they pitted. Are they going for a last-second splash and dash? Because it's going to be 28 seconds to CMS Pro Summit, who are in order with them now, so... it's going to be interesting. Unless CMS are on the same strategy, which could be possible, because Imperial Shakes drop back into its correct running order here, which is what we saw early on. VRS Satellite CMS Pro Summit, Imperial Motorsports, then TNT Carbon and Rebellion a minute 4 back. Could this be the top teams taking a different strategy here?
We'll have to find out. Let's see what happens with Paul Darling. He's coming through Ascari right now. We'll keep an eye and see if he's going to come down pit road or not this time around. He just came out of Ascari. You're on board with him now. He's getting ready to head up towards the Parabolica, and we'll see if he is going to come down pit road this time around as he enters the Parabolica. A little bit of GTE traffic in front of him. Is he going to try to overtake as quickly as possible, or just wait to take pit road? The answer is he's going to stay out another lap, so he is trying to stretch it out for as long as he can.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's going to be interesting to see what way this actually plays fuel-wise, but we're seeing 2 distinct strategies. I'm almost positive here.
Well, if you think about it, Rachel, it takes usually about a minute to get off of pit road entirely. So from pit entries to pit exit, you're looking anywhere between a minute to a minute and a half, depending on what you decide to do. So if TNT Racing Carbon needs to try to make up time, they need to try and make sure they beat him off with the pit road speeds. And if Paul Darling does come down pit road, that will get rid of a 1 minute lead that they have and drop it down to anywhere between 5 to 8 seconds.
Yeah, that'd be really tight, so it's going to be interesting to see exactly what it is, but that's interesting.
Indeed. To be continued, as I would say, for this matter. Little bit of information for the GTE field. We have a couple of great clean drivers out there. Sobleski, actually, who is in the Can-Am Express number 85, has had 0 incidents in that BMW since the drop of the green flag. So the Can-Am Express team, a great drive for him as they are currently running in 11th. Then also you have James Holman, as well as the I'm trying to see the last driver, Anthony James, in the All Balls Racing as well, with 4 incidents. So very clean driving as well for our GTE drivers. Surprised to see, though, that our Unified Performance Racing Ferrari, not the cleanest drivers actually this race.
Yeah, quite surprised, but I suspect the Ferrari fans are eyeing them and judging them. As viewers said, head down pit road here, but also... No, Imperial Shaker out on the track still, CMS Pro Summit are out on the track, TNT Carbon have stayed out, but we're seeing Vero Satellite coming in now with 30 minutes remaining, so they're 10 minutes off cycle. This might mean the others need a splash. This makes sense now. This makes total sense as to why they pitted a bit earlier, kind of way too soon almost, because they were really off cycle before. This means they'll make it now, because it's always been about 30 minutes we've seen on the fuel. So this should take them right to the end. I don't think the others pitting with 40 can.
Here's a little bit of information that we got from actually the co-driver of Paul Darling, David Williams. They are trying to ensure that they don't need a splash and dash for the last few minutes of the race. So they are trying to stretch it out for as long as they can in order to hold off. And it seems to be working out. And it looks like Paul should be able to push this entire stint. So a little bit of fuel conservation during that last stint, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. As we've just seen, Longhorn Lone Star short pitted as well. So I did think that they were weirdly off cycle because perhaps they'd taken a short stop just for fuel at some point, just to kind of top off the tanks, making sure they didn't have to pit. So it makes a lot of sense there too. So I'm thinking from what David Anson's saying, Longhorn Lone Star are doing the same as well. They're also off cycle because they're short pitting. So we're getting... Monza will be decided by the strategy, I think, rather than the on-track here.
Certainly will agree on that matter as you're on board with James Stacy, the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue, holding off the TNT... didn't hold off the TNT Racing Gold of Fabio Berchtold, who will move up into 6th position. And TNT Racing, I have to say, a very well-known team throughout the iRacing sports car community, Rachel. As one of the strong teams, this team, though, surprisingly, has had some good runs, but can never seem to close the deal at some points during the season. And they could be, if they're able to work together and pull off their first podium, I believe, this season.
Yeah, no, it could definitely be possible. That'd be incredible for them, of course, and great to see. It's going to still be a matter of cycling, putting this thing in terms of fuel, so we'll have to see what they do with it, because Monza is decided by your fuel tank.
Certainly is the case right now, as we see the 81 of Fabio Berchtold working his way through De La Rocha to the first Lesmo, under braking, trying to just coax through the corner to set up for the straightaway before heading into the second Lesmo. It is, of course, Paul Darling, Scott McIntyre, Chris Mailer, your top 3 in LMP2, with Kurt Poulter, Nolan Kinslow, and Julie Redmond rounding out your top 3 in GTE. Yeah, I'm looking at...
Are we doing our rundown at this point?
I would say probably here in the next minute or so we would be giving our final full field rundown.
We'll have to at some point. We need to tell you guys where everybody is, but...
Exactly.
I'm sorry, my brain went off with the Ferris for a second. I was like, is he reading through the list? Are we doing a rundown now? Did I just miss something? Did I panic? I'm confused. Hello, who am I? What are you?
Are you still with us? Yes, race cars are on the track still, Rachel. That's a good sign.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Okay.
No, it's been good so far today. We've had a lot of interesting action. It's quieting down now in these last moments while everyone's focusing on fuel strategy, but it has been a very interesting race. Most of the action thankfully came to us from DDM and Craft Dinner Racing, who unfortunately aren't racing together right now, but most certainly were. That was always very interesting to see. Now we're doing some fuel strategy brain crunching.
Yes, time for big brain moments here in the closing minutes as we are about to approach 30 minutes to go. And with that, here pretty soon, we will give you the full field rundown. Of course, brought to you by our good friends at Penguin RC Simulations. Of course, if you want to get all of your great, high-quality, affordable simulation products, visit them at penguinrc.com. Race leader Paul Darling and the VRS Satellite Racing LMP2 has been your race leader for this run here, as he did a little bit of fuel strategy in order to get out ahead of their biggest competitor this race, the TNT Racing Carbon of Scott McIntyre in second position. A great run for the team as they are working their way to get possibly their first podium of the season. Imperial Motorsports Shake with PCA driver from the Carolinas regions, Matthew Kikas, is in the car right now. Of course, Christopher Pies was in the car previously, but Mr. Chip still hard at it to make sure that these guys get a podium finish here for today's race. Fourth position, CMS Pro Summit Team, Chris Kymailer is in fourth position. A quiet day for them, running inside the top 5 all race long. Fifth position, the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple of Jimmy Hume. I gotta say, that's probably one of my favorite paint schemes out on the track, Rachel, with that hint of purple, black, and white. Having a good run, been running in the top 5 for quite some time, and having a good run here at Monza. Sixth position, Fabio Berchtold of the TNT Racing Gold, the sister car to the Carbon Edition, as they work their way through Della Rocha and holding off their field and competitors. They were in a great battle earlier with the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of James Stacy, who is in the 7th position, the sister car to the purple team, as they work their way in 7th. 8th position, of course, is Rebellion Racing, Taras Lukidas, who has been having a good run in his LMP2 car. They were working their way through the field with John Taylor Tammy in the car previously. In the 9th position, DDM Racing Douglas Hintz originally is in the car right now, working his way through. They were having a quiet race right now, but early on was in a heated battle with Rebellion and Pneumatic. Rounding out your top 10 in LMP2 is the Craft Dinner Racing Dave Hasser. It's dinner time almost, and I'm pretty sure people are looking to see if they can get some mac and cheese if they were getting a good top 10 finish tonight. As we move to outside the top 10 in class, James Andrew in the CMHQ Motorsports 1. Morgan Gillespie was originally in the car, but James was able to bring it back up from the field as they worked their way on pit road. 12th position, Hard Promise Racing. Wayne Hutchinson is behind the wheel of the car right now, working his way through LMP2 traffic. 13th in class is Jakesters Racing, Gabriel Albano. After having some issues earlier, the car without a Jake is still out on track and continuing on. Rounding out your 14-car field in LMP2, Chip Witt in the WWZ Red P2 had some issues, is now 5 laps down from your race leader.
Certainly is, of course, Unified Performance Racing in their Notari, number 37, Kurt Poulter behind the wheel, have been leading the race all day long here for the GTE class. It's been a particularly impressive run for them. Second place is going to be CMHQ Motorsports 2 and the 34 car of Nolan Kinslow and his teammate right now, running impressively 23 seconds back from your race leader. In third place, we have the last minute racing car, the number 47 of Julie Redman. That machine's been doing a great job today. Fantastic run for that BMW. P4 is the number 69 car, the Renault Alpine Confused Corvette of Hendrik Zavort and his teammate. Those guys have had a pretty good race. They've been up, they've been down, they've been back, they've been front, they've been all around the field. P number 5 today, CMHQ Motorsports 3, Connor Denny in the 56 machine there, just over a minute back from your class leader in that 5th spot. So it's been a busy but kind of only race for them so far today. Can-Am Canucks and Tim Collier there in the 121. Running in P number 6. Those guys have been at it up and down as well. And they're currently up a total of 4 places from where they started. After that, we've got Longhorn Racing Lone Star, who we believe have been short-pitted here, so they should actually pop up a little bit higher in the final results. Longhorn Racing Lone Star, the 78, piloted by Brett Stevens right now. 7th place, but could soon be higher. Team Brake Fade, James Holman there in the 40 machine in P8. 1 minute 38 back from class leader in that 8th position there. Great shot of the car coming over the second chicane curbs. P9 will be, at the moment, Triple R Racing in another Ferrari. On the racetrack here, the 71 car, Stephanie Bauer doing a great job on the racetrack, pushing this thing as hard as it will possibly go. And they are currently, unfortunately, down 5 places. P10, Longhorn Racing, Larry Ford in that 44 machine, 10th place. And they are up 2 from where they started so far today. Can-Am Express is Brian Zablinski is in the 85 machine there in 11th place. 1 lap down, they're up 2 spots from where they started today. P12 is All Balls Racing and Anthony James in that 77 machine. A couple of laps down for them compared to the rest of the field. They've had an incident and been to pit road, and they are down 3 places. Last running car on the racetrack is MMTR, piloted by Stephen Rivard there. Busy day for them, some incidents, and the 33 car is listed currently 5 laps down from their past leader. The last 2 cars, of course, are being NGP's entry and Can-Am Express, one of which did enter, and NGP have retired. Taylor.
And with that, that is your full field rundown brought to you by Penguin RC Simulations. Remember to visit them at penguinrc.com for high-quality, affordable simulation products for all your sim racing needs. 24 minutes left to go on the clock, and looking through the field right now, we do have a battle going on in LMP2. It's between Pneumatic Motorsports Purple of Jimmy Hume and Rebellion Racing's Tadas Lukitas as they continue to do battle once again, coming through the first Lesmo now as they come actually working their way through the first Lesmo here as Lukitas holds on to the position over Jimmy Hume. Hume trying to see if he can get a good run down the straightaway here before coming into the second Lesmos, heading towards Ascari. You're on board with Hume. As we see, they are currently 1 lap down from the race leader, as 4 cars are on the lead lap overall.
Yeah, they really are. And it is quite interesting with what we've seen in this, and the various strategies we've seen play out. Big shot there with all the cars running down towards Parabolica, coming flying out there of the big chicane section at Ascari. These drivers must be exhausted. It has been a long race. As simple as this track can feel, it's also incredibly testing, and the few corners you will come to are incredibly driver intensive in terms of how the car comes through them. So it's been an impressive run by these guys today. We've seen some fantastic racing. We are past that 2-hour mark here. We're running into our last 20 minutes very shortly. Taylor, what's been your highlight so far today?
Well, of course, it has to have been the domination of VRS Satellite Racing, but one thing I do have to know is the TNT Racing Carbon. Very surprising to see them still out there leading this race in between this previous stints, and it just may show that there may be a little bit of a niche in the armor. Not entirely, because we still see Paul Darling back up in front of the field and pulling away from Scott McIntyre. But it just shows that even with some small changes, even if these drivers were strategizing on saving fuel, it just shows that drivers can find a way to get around the VRS Satellite Racing team.
It's going to be a tough move, to be fair, because it's definitely been a tricky race for this one, and it's great to see them back out front there. The gap of 17 seconds is going to be interesting. But talking to David Williams in the chat for the race, he said they've actually pushed really hard on those initial 2 stints to really save fuel, meaning that Paul Darling will not have to save on this last run. He's got 22 laps of fuel, and he needs to do 22 laps, so they should basically put him in the ballpark here to run this thing to the end. without having to save and without having to make a splash and dash. So they have been on a fuel-saving strategy, and it's not that they pitted late. They pitted less. They actually pushed for an extra 5 laps that they managed to pull out of this, or 3 or 4 laps, more than the other teams, to avoid a splash and dash at the end. So this should be good. So hoping this one works.
Hopefully it should work indeed. Another thing to keep in mind of is some drivers will want people wondering about Chris Kymailer in the CMS Pro team. Apparently Chris had an issue where he had to give up that 3rd place after cutting one of the chicanes early on, and then also got stuck behind a car as well, which is why he lost that gap that he had currently and is now 15 seconds back from P3. He could still make it depending on strategy calls, but it's going to be a tough hill for him to climb.
Yeah, it definitely could do. It's going to be tricky to see what they do with this, so we'll have to see what we can really extrapolate. But at the moment, they've been pushing super hard, and it's going to be really easy for them to kind of lose focus now and make a mistake, which is what we tend to see in these endurance races. They can definitely get into situations where it can be a little moment of just forgetfulness, and the car's suddenly off the track, and they're in big trouble. So you really got to put the focus in even more so than normal towards the end of the race.
Certainly is the case right now as we keep it on going through here today, as we keep an eye on seeing this battle between Hume as well as Taras Lukitas as they work through the Parabolica once again and continue to do battle for that 6th position. Off corner exit they will go, and still a great battle amongst themselves.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And right now it's mostly cars lapping other cars here on the racetrack, other than we have the racing here between Rebellion. Oh, big mess up into the first corner, as we might be looking at a slightly different section of the racetrack here, but Pneumatic and Rebellion just had a big dust up here on the start finish line, with Rebellion making a big oof into the first corner.
Certainly did. Here's the replay right there of the incident that has happened. Jimmy Hume, ooh, there's the lockup right there from Taras Lukitas as he tries to rejoin the track. That allows Jimmy Hume to get back up into the 6th position. And a cut course penalty for Lukitas back in 7th. He still does have a little bit of an advantage over Fabio Berchtold by about 9 seconds, so he should be okay. But the 2 pneumatic cars are actually about to close up and get back together again as they work through Della Roja and heading into the first Lesmo.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we'll see whether they can pull this and take an advantage from it. The mistake by Rebellion Racing and Tadas Lukas could be everything that Jimmy Hume needs here. They're not far behind their sister car, the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue. This could be big for them, of course, but out front it's definitely going to be right now the story of Vera, Satellite Racing, TNT Racing Carbon, and Imperial Motorsports Shake, who have been really having a great race today. It's been quiet for the Shake boys, but they've definitely had a great run out on the track.
And you know what, Rachel? It wasn't really nothing too complex for them either, as I would say.
No, it's not. It's been pretty quiet, I'd say, for them, but at the same time, it's still, honestly, it's about racing the track. It's almost a time trial event at the moment for them, which is definitely going to make it more easily. I'm having a moment myself now, my brain's switching down. It's very easy for them to make a mistake because they'll be dialing back into that time trial mode, and just one little slip can cost them a huge amount of time, lose them a position or two, a crash that could end the race, so you got to be super careful.
It certainly is, but they still have a lot of sim works left to do here with about 17 minutes left to go, Rachel, and I think we have one more thing we need to mention before that race is over.
Yeah, absolutely. It really could be, and we'll be back and forth between those cars, but the Notari of Unified Performance Racing has barely put a foot wrong. Kurt Poulter behind the wheel of that car, and they have not slipped up. It's been quiet. We saw racing at Circuit de Mont, but not today. Turns out that Notari power has been perfect at the home of Notari. They have literally not put a foot wrong. I wish I could say something about them, but they've been boring today. Boring and fast and winning.
Hey, Rachel. You know we still have to talk about Complex SimWorks.
You know, that reminds me. We do.
I was like giving you these subtle little hints.
My brain's been gone for the last 20 minutes. I'm so sorry. Did you know, though, Taylor, the Complex SimWorks are exactly what you're looking for if you're looking for an affordable sim racing accessory for your rig? Did you know that?
Did not know that. Tell me more.
Well, you should check out Complex SimWorks. They offer 3D printing and custom design services for your sim racing setup at affordable prices. And we all know you love affordable prices.
Of course.
Absolutely. And Complex SimWorks has many new products in development. Head over to their website at complex-simworks.com and see how you can upgrade your racing rig today. That is, of course, complex-simworks.com.
And
I pulled that one back. Yeah, I was missing every hint, and we just dove back and forth down the street.
It's like I was like, I just decided, well, let's try this to see if this will work to get us good. It just shows, ladies and gentlemen, that it's been a long day for us, but we're almost there. 15 minutes left to go in today's race. Still, though, it is VRS Satellite Racing's Paul Darling leading in LMP2. Unified Performance Racing Kurt Poulter in the Ferrari. See what you did to me, Rachel?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm getting your stroke now. But anyways, it's still the Kurt Poulter and the United Performance Racing Ferrari as they work their way through. Our producer Ryan Bauer sending us a big F in our Discord chat as we continue on, because we are just ready to continue on and see who will win today's race and who will round out the podium here at Monza. Jimmy Hume working around one of the SimHQ Motorsports cars, the Corvette as well. And you know what? I'm still wondering how that deal is going on between the bet between Doug Atkinson as well as Anderson regarding whose team comes out on top.
I agree. Yeah, I really would like to see who comes out on top. And apparently they've turned down the
mechanical bull. I was disappointed, but hey.
Yeah, but I still think one of them needs to
Well, at least one of them gets bragging rights.
Yeah, well, the loser has to wear a cow onesie. Come on, it's Texas. You've got to do something cow-related.
No, that's only safe for Sebring. Cow onesies are safe for Sebring. And if you
true,
So
but
that is
Sebring's Florida and
yes, it is.
So
well, that is true. Being my home state and everything like that.
Ah, you are Florida man. Okay.
I am Florida.
So much sense.
Not that kind of Florida man, but I am Florida man.
Oh dear.
Oh my
We're
goodness.
getting sillier as time runs down here, folks. I do apologize. We are stupid.
They said they wanted professionals, and they ended up with myself and Rachel. So we hope you enjoy the show. And like we said, we're still waiting to see if we'll be back for next season.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Yes, definitely. Race cars. Doing race car things. VRS Satellite Racing, they are on schedule to make this thing run to the end here. TNT Carbon are currently running in second place, but I believe they may need to splash here. I need to look at what their actual cycles were like. Let me actually do a little bit of matharoonie right now. Their stop was on 22. Oh, and
it's trouble for Scott McIntyre.
Yeah, they had to run through the emergency runoff there for the first chicane. That will cost them a huge amount of time, actually. I don't know what happened to Scott. There, but he came in and he did the same thing that we saw from Pneumatic Blue. He
certainly
clipped the big foam block there, which could actually damage the car, but no, he had the same wiggle coming into the braking zone and had to take the cutoff. So whether or not he needs to splash, he definitely now needs to dash to catch up with where he was running. And actually looking at his times here again, he has been running exactly 2 22-second stints. As we have another car off just ahead of them here. That's a Longhorn car. Is off on the second chicane. Longhorn Racing's 44, that was.
That's Mike Tyler in the car.
And another car off in the first chicane. I told you I was losing their minds and forgetting what's going on right now. That wasn't Rebellion, that was .DDM, that was Hard Promise Racing, who were backwards in the first chicane.
So drivers are getting tired, the broadcasters are getting ready to give you the final closing minutes, and I'm pretty sure for some drivers, they're ready to cross off this race, as to move on to the final round. But for some, like Paul Darling, Scott McIntyre, I'm pretty sure even though Scott just got involved with that incident heading into the first chicane, they're pretty happy with their performance here today.
Yeah, they really are, and it's been a great run for most of these teams today. It's really been put out there, and they've done really well with how this one has unfolded. It's a tricky track, it really is, because Monza's, again, complicated but simple. It lulls you into a false sense of security and really allows the drivers to relax, which is a bad thing when you're in these last moments of a race. We've got 10 minutes roughly on the clock, and they're all snoozing in the cars, so it's one of those situations where they are running out of their own exhaustion, and that's where endurance racing differs from sprint. You have to keep that focus up. You've got to stay focused. You've got to bring the car home.
Well, Rachel, let's talk a little bit about the championship race, the final race of the season. We're heading back to the United States, to Brazelton, Georgia, to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, and all I gotta say is that track is way too much different than this track that we've been at here. It's a lot of roller coaster type, the Georgia roller coaster, as we like to say, as we see who will come out on top. Of course, that is on May 16th, so just about a month away for everyone to enjoy. Think about what they can do to update their cars in order to see if they can come up on the top step of the podium, and if anyone can have anything for VRS or United Performance Racing.
It could be huge, actually, yes, because there's a lot of this sort of material that needs to basically happen for it to turn out the right way for these guys, even towards the front. All their strategies have to be right, and the reason they're at the front is because their strategies are on that knife edge. Keep it on the knife edge and keep it balanced, and you end up having the right race. If you make one small mistake, the entire house of cards can come tumbling down.
Certainly can be the case, as they will come to a close for race 5 at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, and then of course their new season will kick off starting later in 2022. So very exciting. We'll bring more coverage. Of course, follow all of Championship Motorsports on their social media for updates on their upcoming season 2, which will happen in 2022 by the looks of it. And you know what, Rachel? It's been quite interesting to see how the racing across all these different tracks that we went to for the past several months together here, seeing the different drivers showcasing their talents so far this season has been phenomenal and interesting, to say the least, to see who really shows what they have here and how well of a drive that they have, as well as grown as drivers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's very much possible that could be the case, because we've seen such a huge difference in these guys even from that first round. And I will say the series has dramatically cleaned up in this season alone. From that first round of Daytona, the practice race, to later rounds, we've seen the professionalism of these drivers skyrocket as they get comfortable running around each other. We've seen a really impressive shift in their driving, and of course this being the first league they've really pushed in this context in iRacing terms. For this, it's been a huge shift really, in terms of how much better it's gotten, you know? Like, these guys have really settled into their groove and shown a great strength.
They certainly have, Rachel, and it's going to be exciting to see what they can do at the next round at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. But we still have just about 7.5 minutes left to go on the clock. Looking through the field right now, the field's pretty much spaced out for the most part. No battles happening right now on the track. Looking through the field to see who has the fastest lap of the race. For the LMP2 class currently right now, it is Paul Darling with a 136.253, while in GTE, it is none other than Kurt Poulter, Justin Hess with a 144.117. So those are your fastest drivers in their respective classes, as we keep an eye to see who else is going to be one to showcase their talents here in the closing minutes at Monza. 7 minutes left to go. 86 laps completed since we started this race.
Yeah, it really has been, and it's been a phenomenal race today from what we've seen here on the ground. As busy traffic for Kurt Poulter in the Unified Performance Racing Notari. Our 37 car has really been kind of swamped by a couple of cars. He's got a lap car in his own class ahead of him right now, and a LMP2 car passing by. That's a CMS Pro Summit car from 4th place. Although this should shake out as 3rd, I think, once time plays forward. Doing a little bit of math based on CMS's own strategy here. They pitted on lap 23, and I believe they then pitted again on lap 45. So I think they have also stretched to maybe be able to make it without another stop. So CMS could be able to do that. TNT Carbon, I don't think can.
I think that's TNT Carbon and Pneumatic Motorsports Blue are going to be the teams to watch, including the TNT Racing Gold, as they have 21 laps left or completed right now. For the Imperial Motorsports and CMS Pro team, they pitted 1 lap after or 1 lap before the VRS Satellite Racing team, who is just now coming by Kurt Poulter right now. But as you see on screen, James Stacy right now in the number 4 Pneumatic Motorsports Blue. One of the drivers to keep an eye to see if he has enough fuel to make it here to the end. 5.5 minutes left to go. Your race leaders in both classes are just now coming out of the Parabolica, heading down the front straightaway here. As you see the primer gray Ferrari of Kurt Poulter and the VRS Satellite Racing of Paul Darling. Poulter dives to the inside of one of the GTE lap cars, BMWs, as he enters the braking zone into the Retifilia chicane. And will complete the pass perfectly, continue on his way through the Curva Grande.
Yeah, absolutely. And Curva Grande being... Oh, here we go. TNT Carbon in. So this is that last-ditch fuel dash that we expected them to do here. So that is them hitting pit road right now. Scott McIntyre can't make it to the end. And this is what shakes the order back up, that puts CMS possibly, along with Imperial Shake, ahead of them. But we'll have to see what happens with those two, because they're still coming out of Ascari in Shake's case, and CMS coming out of the second Lesma. It shouldn't be a long stop here for Scott McIntyre, but it's going to be long enough, I think, to potentially change this. As he comes straight back out again, he may hold his position here as round Parabolica comes Matthew Krakis.
Matthew
Will it be
Kikas.
close enough? It won't be, I don't think. He's up to speed now, but he's closing in. This could be a tight fight at the end.
It could be. We'll have to keep track of that right now. It's 13 seconds between the two drivers, Scott McIntyre and Matthew Kikas now, as they enter into the Retifilia chicanes right now. McIntyre's out. Kikas just now coming out as we speak, heading into Curva Grande. Let's take a look at the speed difference between these two drivers. It's now down to 8.3 seconds, and McIntyre is in heavy GTE traffic. He just got by it, so Kikas will have to deal with the same thing as they now head into De La Rocha.
Yeah, certainly are, and going for it now will be the big run here, as into the Lesmo is the TNT Carbon car. Through the first one is Krakis. So they're actually pretty close together. They're only separated by a corner now, and this means they're really down to the wire here. And Imperial Shake may need to think about saving a little bit. They may not be able to push as hard, but I think that gap might be a little insurmountable here for Matthew.
It's going to be
Carbon coming out of Aquarium now, so yeah, not close enough.
Yeah, but he is stuck behind traffic. The gap is starting to close up just a little bit. Nope, actually, no, that's actually the sister car in front of the Matthew Kikas. That's the TNT Racing Gold of Fabio Berchtold, who is in front of him. So got a little bit of misconception right there, as he will work his way around through the Parabolica, out of corner exit, dive to the inside of Berchtold to get ahead of him, as well as past some of the GTE traffic as they head down the front straightaway. It is a 9.3 second gap. It's safe to say that McIntyre will hold on to that position unless an incident were to happen for him in the closing stages.
Yeah, I agree. More than possible for that to happen, but unlikely, I think, at this stage. Although if I was that's Imperial, no, sorry, it's TNT Gold there I was seeing in the middle of that quagmire of cars. As it's CMS Pro Summit just ahead of that group, cycling through here. We're starting to get a lot of bunching up with lap traffic, which is really going to make things a little tense towards the end.
Certainly so, as it is now 1 minute 45 seconds left to go. Our race leader, Paul Darling, is just now coming through Curva Grande. He should be getting the white flag, not this time by, but at least the next time by. So this next lap should be his last one, as he is working his way through some LMP2 and GTE traffic. One of the Can-Am Express Corvettes. He will dive to the inside before they enter the first Lesmo, and then get to the back bumper of one of the Longhorn Racing Ferraris.
Oh, that's a big view there. Look how low down he is compared to the Ferrari. Almost feeling like he's been towered over by those GTE cars as he shoots to the inside. Big power on, so close to the ground there, just rocketing along the track. As we have a quick stop, splash and dash by Rebellion is racing here. They apparently couldn't make it even though they were trying to. They're straight in and straight out again, so dash of fuel there. All they needed, as I think everyone else is going to try and shoot for the end here. We know that VRS Satellite are good to the end, and this should be one more time around after this one.
Could we possibly see drivers not making it on fuel here, as we see our race leader Paul Darling come through the Parabolica? 30 seconds left to go on the clock. So when he comes across the start-finish line, time will expire and he will be on his last lap here today at Monza. As we see him swish by the start-finish line, 91 laps have been completed. Yes, this should be the last lap. He's now coming up to the back bumper of the Hard Promise Racing P2 car of Wayne Hutchinson.
Absolutely, and we'll have to see if they can make it through here without the traffic being too much of a problem, because right now, traffic is worse than at the start of the race, where the traffic at least is alert and focused. It's much trickier, of course, towards the end, where they're tired and focusing on their own race and they don't perhaps see you or they miss you, so it could be the trickiest time to be lapping cars as a race leader, as I believe this will tick over to either white flag this time or end.
White flag is out for our race leaders. Paul Darling is behind Wayne Hutchinson coming out of the second Lesmo, heading towards the Ascari chicanes for the final time. He gets past Hutchinson and sets his sights on Ascari. He has been dominant since the drop of the green flag. Was in second for a time, but was able to gather it back up after some fuel strategy. Out of Ascari, heading down the short chute towards the Parabolica for the final time. Paul Darling, David Williams continue the streak here in the CMS iRacing Team Endurance Series through the Parabolica for the final time. Gets by some lap traffic and LMP2 and GTE, dicing his way through. VRS Satellite Racing's Paul Darling and David Williams win at Monza.
A huge run from them, flag to flag, with some fuel strategy to boot. But it's not long now, because coming out of the final chicane there, running down towards Parabolica, Unified Performance Racing of Kurt Poulter and his teammate are coming in for the final run now. Justin Haas, Kurt Poulter winning again in the GTE category through Parabolica, that last time now. And on to the final straight, that hallowed straight that's seen so many race cars under the bridge, and they will win the GT class.
What a drive for all of our drivers here today, and as the last few of them come across the line, we will give you the full field rundown here momentarily after an exciting race here at Monza. As we give them, our leaders, our lead lap cars, a few more minutes to come across the start-finish line, we'll have the full field rundown to tell you where your favorite team finished here in today's race. And then we will sit down with our top 3 finishers per class and interview the 2 drivers who were in the cars. As we wait for the final couple of LMP2s, GTE cars out of the Parabolica to come across the line. As we're waiting to see who else is left to come across, I believe they're waiting on... Nope, McIntyre has been able to get through, and Matthew Kikas as well. So it's safe to say all of our lead lap cars have gone through. Pneumatic Motorsports purple of Jimmy Hume is coming through. It looks like to be a Scotty, but I believe he's already taken the checkered flag along with several other drivers.
I believe he has indeed, so it will be coming into the closure now. Got a couple of last lap cars just wrapping up those moments here, but for relatively processional circuit, it's been an interesting race with quite a lot of drama and excitement today, Taylor.
Certainly so, as they now enter the pit stops, and it's now time to give you the full field rundown. VRS Satellite Racing's David William and Paul Darling take home the checkered flag, followed by TNT Racing Carbon in second. Imperial Motorsports Shake will come home third, the last car on the lead lap. First car one lap down, CMS Pro Summit Team will come in fourth, followed by Pneumatic Motorsports Purple in fifth. DDM Racing in sixth position, followed by Rebellion Racing in seventh. Pneumatic Motorsports Blue will come home eighth, followed by TNT Racing Gold in ninth. Craft Dinner Racing will come home in the 10th position, followed by SimHQ Motorsports 1 in 11th. 12th, Hard Promise Racing, and 13th, Jakester Racing. Rounding out your LMP2 field, WWZ Red in 14th. Rachel?
Coming home with a win in your GTE field, Unified Performance Racing with second place going to SimHQ Motorsports 2. Third place, Renault Alpine Racing with fourth, SimHQ Motorsports 3. Fifth place is Can-Am Canucks with sixth place, Longhorn Racing Lone Star. Seventh place, Last Minute Racing with eighth, Team Brake Fade. Ninth, Triple R Racing. 10th, Longhorn Racing. 11th, All Balls Racing. 12th, Can-Am Racing. 13th, MMTR. 14th, NGP, and a no start for Can-Am Express.
And that is your full field rundown. And with that, we will go ahead and bring in our winners. David Williams, Paul Darling, you do it once again here at Monza, gentlemen. Congratulations on your victory. How was track conditions for you today?
Hey, Taylor, thanks for having us. I think the track was good. We were having a little less than good luck, I guess, catching traffic, but it was good overall.
Yeah, once the track cooled down at the end, it's really easy to put 36s down and just kind of cruising to the end there.
Talk about the strategy that you guys had, because we were kind of a little bit curious about it, of why you were saving so much fuel, which it did work. It worked out perfectly for you in the end, but you guys were able to pull away so easily during the race for the most part. Why try and save that much and holding in second position?
It's really just you always want to do your best to eliminate a splash if you can, because the time going down pit road is most always going to be greater than the time lost from saving fuel, and David did a fantastic job saving one lap on his first stint, and then he just decided to go for 2 laps on his second stint, and he was able to pull that off, and I didn't even have to save on my final stint because of that. So it was just I think it showed in the end result there. We were able to stretch out a gap when TNT wasn't able to make it to the end there.
Well, before we let you gentlemen go, is there anyone you would like to say thank you to, and what you look forward to ahead at the season finale?
Yeah, thanks to Satellite Racing. Thanks to the guys back at the team there that help us out. Thanks to Paul for being a good teammate. And I personally look forward, and I think Paul as well, look really forward to Road Atlanta. It's probably my best track, and I think it's high up on Paul's list as well.
Yeah, should be a good time there. Definitely want to thank everyone that David thanked, and thanks David for running with me. It's been a great season.
That is Paul Darling and David Williams coming home as your race winners in LMP2, and Rachel has caught up with second place drivers, the TNT Racing Carbon. Of course, that is coming up into the booth, Everett Paddock, and also, as we wait for him, I believe we're waiting on one more driver. Scott McIntyre.
Scott's a little shy. He didn't want to join you guys. Sorry. So I'll do my best to speak for Scott.
Well, hopefully you will. Thank you very much for joining us, Everett. Busy race for you guys. Congratulations on second place, of course. Looks like you guys ran a little bit tighter on the fuel than others.
Yeah, our strategy probably wasn't the best, but yeah, we had to do that splash at the end, and but luckily enough, we had a little margin, so it worked out well for us.
Well, it certainly did work indeed. A podium and second place is nothing to sniff at, of course. Clean, safe race there for you guys, which is exactly what you need.
Yeah, this kind of hasn't been our track record to date, so it was good for us to do well, and I really want to give Scott a shout out for doing a great job. I was really racking up the incidents, and he kept it down to a minimum and did a great job bringing the car home.
So they did, of course. Road Atlanta coming up next for the final round. What's that looking like for you guys?
Both Scott and I have some good experience there. We've done Petit Le Mans, so we're looking forward to it. Should be fun.
Awesome. Maybe you'd like to give a shout out to or thank?
I just want to thank our teammates, our other TNT teammates that helped us out with the setup this week. Appreciate Fabio and Thomas with the help.
Awesome. There you go. Well, thanks for joining us, Everett Paddock, along with his teammate Scott McIntyre coming home today in second in your LMP2 class.
And next up is our third place competitors of Imperial Motorsports, Shake, Matthew Kikis, Christopher Pies coming up into the booth. And gentlemen, not a bad run for you guys. And of course, also for you gentlemen as well, since you run in the PCA, coming from Road Atlanta all the way to Monza.
Yeah, it was a fun run. We did what we could, and we knew it was going to be a long race. Fuel strategy was definitely a part of it. You can ask Matt, and he can attest. I was sitting there trying to crunch the numbers during his last two stints to make sure we had enough fuel to cross the finish line without having to come in for a splash and go.
What makes it so difficult to try and survive this track? It's not that it's such a technical course, but trying to get the right strategy to pull off a good finish here.
Especially in the LMP2 car, it's just a matter of managing the traffic in a manner that you're not going to lose too much time, and you can use the strengths of the car to your advantage, especially because it tends to have lower peak cornering speed than some of the GTE cars do. You just have to be aware of where to use your car's strengths to get the best lap time while also losing the least amount of time. And then you add in the fuel saving element, and it just makes a lot of decisions you have to make on the fly to get that good result out of the car.
Well, we look ahead to back at Road Atlanta coming up in the next time we come back for coverage of the iRacing Team Endurance Series. Y'all's thoughts on how you would do there?
Well, we always like Road Atlanta. It's always a good track that really sets up well for our team. And last year we ran this car in the Petit Le Mans for iRacing, and so we got a lot of time on the track in this particular car. So feel pretty good about it. We're excited about getting back to Road Atlanta and closing up the series and having a good showing at the last race.
Of course, that is third place drivers Imperial Shake Motorsports Christopher Pyth and Matthew Kikis, and Rachel has caught up with United Performance Racing's Ferrari Justin Hess and Kurt Poulter.
I certainly have Justin Hess joining us right now. I don't think Kurt's here, but Justin, you disappointed me today.
Why is that?
You were primer grey again. I thought we had this conversation.
I think that's Kurt's fault. He's the one that does the paint on the car. That's why he's gone. He didn't want to be here after not painting the car.
He couldn't face the judgment. I mean, without being red today and with Enzo Ferrari probably leaving a horse head in your garage today, you somehow still managed to take home victory at one of the homes of Ferrari. So a fantastic job, of course, not to be sniffed at, and a pretty dominant run today.
Yeah, it was car was great. The setup was really good, and just me and Kurt ran consistent laps, and it was a good time. I really enjoyed it out there, but just had some issues with the tires.
Did seem as though tires were a little bit slippery today and degradation a little bit higher than normal. Would you say that?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, of course. So with Road Atlanta coming up next and finally for the season, is that a track you guys are looking forward to or concerned about with the tires?
I'm looking forward to it. It's my home track, but in terms of tire wears, it's just going to depend on the temperature.
Well, there you go. It's going to definitely be interesting to see exactly what does happen with that one. But you guys, of course, have been pretty dominant this season. Are you expecting it to be exactly the same next time out, or are you expecting competition?
You never know the strengths and weaknesses of the cars. You don't know what it's going to be until you arrive. I know the Ferrari's a bit quicker in the more low downforce situations, so with a bit more downforce on, I hope they can definitely close up.
Well, we look forward to seeing exactly what you guys pull out the bag there. Anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or thank?
Just want to thank, CMS and everyone for putting this on. Kurt sponsors. He wants to thank, he's not here, obviously, but he wants to thank Evolve Range Solutions and Redenzo Radar Detectors.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. Justin Hess, along with Kurt Poulter of the Unified Performance Racing in their Notari. It wasn't quite a Ferrari.
Next up is the SimHQ Motorsports Corvette of Nolan Kinslow and Brian. Gentlemen, great job for you guys coming home with another podium finish. Your thoughts on how the track was and the conditions were for you today?
Good. Started out a little hot. Definitely had to watch tire wear. But fortunately, the track cooled down as the day went on, and we were able to double stint tires towards the end of the day.
Your thoughts on the difficulty of trying to manage the gap against your competitors, as well as having to work with the LMP2 cars as they try to get around you before entering the chicanes and corners. What preparations as well as communication do you have with each other, since when one driver's out, you usually try to spot for each other, to be able to make sure that no incidents happen for you?
Yeah, usually when one of us is in the car, the other is spotting, keeping an eye on times, keeping an eye on positions of everyone. Just constantly updating each other on what the situation is like on track.
Oh, before we let you go and celebrate this podium finish, is there anyone you'd like to say thank you to?
Rest of the SimHQ team. We always have good teamwork, always good to work with them on strategies and setups, so just a good group of guys.
Yeah, SimHQ and of course CMS for the organization. It's a good event so far, really enjoying it.
Yep, absolutely.
Of course, that is the SimHQ Motorsports 2 team of Nolan Kinslow and Brian Van Biscombe. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rachel has caught up with our final podium finishers here tonight. It is, of course, Hendrik de Zwarts and finally Francois Bru in the Renault Alpine Racing Corvette.
It is indeed third place today in the GTE category for you guys. A very busy race out there, and you guys had a lot of action on track today.
We did, although I'm afraid I'm here solo because Francois had to run and get himself a little Fauci ouchie. It was it was a great race. You know, I mean, we did have some trouble with some traffic a few times. You know, there were some LMP2s that pulled some moves that, you know, we might have preferred they didn't do, but nevertheless we made it across with all four tires still on the car, and you know, pretty happy with third place today, considering that I wasn't even supposed to drive this race, just like Le Mans, and I got pulled in, and here we are.
Well, certainly a fantastic run from you guys, regardless. So, awesome turnout in the end here in third place. Go into Road Atlanta. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
I think it's going to be a tight race. I think we'll be able to bring a little bit more pace. I know Jack is planning on being back, one of our three drivers, and he's really good at Atlanta. So it's going to be all about seeing if we can, you know, try to hold pace with Justin, because that Ferrari is just crazy quick. But you know, we've got a French flag on our car, so hopefully that leads us forward.
Well, there you go. We'll have to see if it does. And before we do actually let you go, anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or thank?
Yeah, I mean, obviously shout out to CMS for putting on a great series. The admins do a fantastic job. Shout out to any of my friends that might be watching, also Pit Viper Sunglasses, and to you guys as well. Really appreciate the awesome broadcast that you put on, although I wish that you liked my car a little bit better, Rachel, because I know you're not fully in love with our livery.
It just confuses me. It's a Ferrari, but it's a Renault, but it's a Renault, but it's a Ferrari.
But Corvette's a French... It's a French name.
It is in a way. I can't give you that, but at least you at least have been consistent in your colours, unlike the heretics from Unified who turned up in a grey Ferrari to Monza. Who does that? That's like wearing a purple suit on the red carpet.
You know, I thought about doing a one-off livery for this race and having Sebastian Vettel on the front, just to, you know, wagging his finger at them.
That would have been amazing. Well, on that note, we will let you go. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Hendrik de Zwarts and Francois Bru, who came home today in third in your GT category. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as we come to a close here today, Rachel, what is your final thoughts about this race?
Monza was Monza. It was fast, there were incidents, and it was very much a track of strategy. It lived up to its reputation.
Well, going from one track that's fast and also with the sharp turning points and braking points to a more flowing up and hill roller coaster track. That's right, join us for the season finale at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta on May 16th. That's right, about a month's time away before we bring you back the coverage and the amazing racing of the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports. Of course, we cannot say, of course, thank you to our amazing partners, of course, for today's race. Of course, that is Penguin RC, Complex SimWorks, and Grid Finder. Make sure to go visit them for more great, interesting things to use. But with that, it is time to come to a close. For Rachel Whiteford, my partner in crime, and our wonderful producer, Ryan Bauer, and the cameras work provided by Dougie Beard, I am Taylor Burris. Thank you so much for watching today's broadcast here at Monza.